Chapter 554. If Mu Yao were to go all out, no one in the same cultivation level would be her opponent. Moreover, Mu Yao was currently at 7th level Origin Spirit stage, while Su Yi was still at 5th level Origin Spirit stage. There was a gap between them. A few elders nodded slightly. They knew a little about Mu Yao's background. 7th level Origin Spirit stage. Feeling Mu Yao's unrestrained aura, Su Yi's eyes rippled. He had long felt that it was a little difficult to hold on until now with the vast and surging Yuan Qi in his body. After all, there was a gap between 5th level Origin Spirit stage and 7th level Origin Spirit stage, not to mention that Mu Yao was not simple. At this moment, Su Yi really did not dare to be careless. Whether it was Mu Yao's physical body or speed, she was not inferior to him. This even made Su Yi's mind ripple. There was such a powerful existence in the Shunjian Gate. Then, in the central region's true colossus, the sacred mountain, there would be even more hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the younger generation of disciples. Rumble, as Su Yi's thoughts rippled, a dazzling golden light with Mu Yao as the center became more and more dazzling. It emitted a blazing brilliance and drew in the energy of heaven and earth. Finally, a huge phantom of a ferocious bird appeared on the stage. It flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Screech, the ferocious bird screeched, its voice piercing through the clouds like rolling thunder. It shook the surrounding space, causing ripples to undulate. The golden light was so dazzling that the entire Lingjian Peak was trembling. Flap, flap, the ferocious bird spread its wings. It was dozens of feet large, as if it was alive. Its entire body was shining with golden light. As it flapped its wings, the airflow swept out like a storm, causing the surrounding space to collapse. A 1+ NK edition initial G hair, a woo. When such an aura spread out, the large number of savage beasts around the spirit sword peak were all shocked and trembled with their roars. This is? Heavens, it's the golden-winged roc. Everyone's eyes trembled. This vicious bird was truly too terrifying. Someone recognized that it was the legendary golden-winged pung. Golden-winged roc. Heavens, Mu Yao's Yuanqi has transformed into a golden-winged great pung. The crowd was in an uproar. The golden-winged roc was a legendary beast of the demon clan. It was one of the top great demons of the demon clan. It's actually the golden-winged roc. Situ Muyang was also surprised. His primordial qi had taken the form of the nether void roc. Although it was also a great beast of the demon clan, it was still slightly inferior to the golden-winged roc. The silhouette of the golden roc appeared, and its monstrous golden engravings covered the sky. Its ferocious aura spread out, and even from afar, it made one's heart tremble. Golden-winged roc. Su Yi's eyes were also trembling as he stared at the gigantic bird. For some reason, the blood in his entire body seemed to be boiling. The pressure emanating from the gargantuan golden-winged roc made Su Yi's primordial chaos, supreme technique, and heavenly fey ancient scripture tremble. Gee! The silhouette of the golden-winged roc flapped its wings and hovered in the air. Its eyes were filled with golden light, like two small suns. Its ferocious aura was mighty and domineering. Mu Yao stepped forward, her orange robe fluttering. Then, she stepped on the silhouette of the golden-winged roc, just like a saintess. Yuan Qi transformation, Sui said indifferently as he condensed his hand seals. Immediately, billowing primordial qi surged out from his body. Crimson light erupted, and crimson flames sprinkled from the void. Buzz. At this moment, the Lingjian Peak began to shine brightly. It was densely covered with divine clouds, and the sound of wind and thunder began to resound endlessly. It was as if a god had come into being. The entire Lingjian Peak was boiling, and an ancient aura surged out, as if they had returned to ancient times. Awu, far away from the Lingjian Peak, the brute demon beast roared endlessly, and its ferocious eyes trembled. Such a commotion caused everyone present to be dumbstruck. This was too shocking. Coo! Soon, Su Yi's body was filled with golden light. It was as bright as the clouds, and Su Yi was also shrouded in it. A piercing screech resounded from it, shocking everyone on the Lingjian peak. The next moment, a divine bird like a phoenix spread its wings from the battleground. It was filled with crimson flames, and its eyes were looking down at the world. Its terrifying aura was extremely shocking. This beast shadow was only a few feet long. The beast shadow was vivid and lifelike. Its crimson eyes seemed to contain two seas of fire, like two rising suns. It was as if a matchless phoenix had come from ancient times and could connect the heavens and the earth. It was extremely terrifying. "Oh my God, what is that?" Everyone present was stunned. Sakura Asaka, Ryugan River, O Luo, Gongqi, Zhang Lingyun, and all the other disciples were dumbfounded and trembling. On the high platform, at this moment, the elders and protectors could not help but directly stand up. Their old bodies trembled slightly, and their eyes changed greatly. "Isn't that Situmuyang, Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, Lu Ji," and the others' eyes were about to pop out. They had seen such a ferocious bird with their own eyes. It was the terrifying beast bone that they encountered in the mysterious place. Awoo! Around the Lingjian peak, those savage beasts roared and had already crawled on the ground, trembling. "What is that? Is that the divine bird phoenix?" The entire place trembled. This was just too shocking. That kind of divine birds might seem to be even greater than that of the great golden-winged ping. It was even more terrifying, making their entire bodies tremble. They couldn't help but want to kneel down. "Is it the divine bird phoenix?" Gongqi said, and his eyes were filled with shock. Such a divine bird seemed to be the legendary phoenix, but it didn't seem very likely. "Is it really the divine bird phoenix?" Everyone trembled. The divine bird phoenix, that was the legendary supreme of the demon race, the emperor of the birds. It was said that the divine bird phoenix no longer existed in the world. It was buried in the distant ancient times, and even in the ancient times, it was impossible to find its blood essence to comprehend the transformation of vitality. On the golden-winged rock's shadow, Mu Yao's beautiful eyes rippled with golden light as she looked at the divine bird phoenix in front of her. "Coo!" The divine bird spread its wings like a phoenix, and its pressure was impressive. Its eyes seemed to be overlooking the world, and it could suppress millions of people. "Elder Su Yi's vitality transformation, is it really the phoenix?" An elder shivered. This kind of Yuan Qi manifestation, could it really be the legendary divine bird phoenix? It shouldn't be. The divine bird phoenix has disappeared long ago. Situ Liuyun's eyes were also trembling at this moment. Looking at the divine bird's shadow on the platform, his eyes were trembling. The divine bird phoenix had disappeared long ago, and it was only left in the legends. However, he was not sure. This was too similar to the divine bird phoenix in the legends. Even if it was not far from it. Many people looked at Elder Su. They thought that Su Yi was Elder Su's disciple, and Su Yi's vitality transformation of the divine bird phoenix should be known by Elder Su. Looking at the lifelike divine bird's shadow on the platform, Elder Su clenched his hands on the armrest of his chair. Blue veins appeared on the back of his hands. At this moment, he seemed to be unable to suppress the shock in his heart. His eyes lit up and he said, "It is indeed not the divine bird phoenix, but it is still the divine bird phoenix. Then what is it?" Chapter 555. The dragon gives birth to 9 sons, and the phoenix gives birth to 9 chicks. Elder Su's eyes moved. At this moment, light surged out from his eyes as he tightly gripped the armrest of his chair. He said, "It is said that the phoenix gives birth to 9 chicks, namely the Emperor Sparrow, Emperor Phoenix, Peacock, Great Rock, Scarlet Phoenix, Swan and I, Blue Luan, Swan and I, and Swan. If my guess is correct, Su Yi's Yuan Qi should be the eldest of the phoenix's offspring, the Emperor Sparrow." Emperor Sparrow. These two words caused the hearts of the elders and protectors present to involuntarily tremble. At a closer look, the divine bird was indeed slightly smaller than the phoenix, and there were some differences. However, the Emperor Sparrow also only existed in legends. It was a divine bird that the phoenix gave birth to, and was the closest existence to the phoenix. The golden-winged great roc and the Emperor Sparrow are originally from the same family. However, from the looks of it, the Emperor Sparrow's phantom, formed by Su Yi's Yuan-Qi, seems to be slightly stronger. An elder spoke. Although Mu Yao was at the 7th level of the origin spirit stage, and her Yuan-Qi was also one of the 9 chicks that the phoenix gave birth to, in terms of might, the Emperor Sparrow formed by Su Yi's Yuan-Qi was even more terrifying. It was filled with an aura that seemed to have crossed over from the ancient times. This difference might be due to the blood essence. The second elder spoke. His body was trembling slightly, and his eyes were rippling. He could feel the might of the Emperor Sparrow's phantom, formed by Su Yi's Yuan-Qi. This was related to the blood essence that he had obtained. Emperor Sparrow. On the back of the golden-winged great roc, Mu Yao's eyes were filled with surprise. She recognized the Emperor Sparrow and was shocked. However, her gaze became even sharper. Her golden eyes were no different from the golden-winged great roc's fierce eyes. Golden light poured out and rays of light shot out. Ku! X genuine Z initial E hair Isu E stood on the phantom of the Emperor Sparrow and spread his wings to directly collide with it. The entire battle stage instantly became incomparably hot. Walala, a torrential flame suddenly swept out in all directions. It was as if it could destroy everything and burn all living things. The golden-winged great roc was domineering and incomparably domineering. It was extremely masculine and could suppress all directions. The Emperor Sparrow's body was surrounded by a blazing aura that was accompanied by a mighty aura. It was as if it carried an ancient aura, causing the surrounding spectators to feel a sense of danger in the depths of their souls. Their hearts trembled. Mu Yao stepped on the golden-winged great roc and swept across the battle stage like a goddess. The Emperor Sparrow beneath Su Yi's feet was vast and mighty like a young war god that descended from the primordial era. Rumble! The phantoms of the 2 men and 2 beasts collided, and a shocking battle broke out. Both Su Yi and Mu Yao were doing their best. Guji! The golden-winged roc and the Emperor Sparrow kept screaming and colliding with each other, which made the golden light and raging flame on Lingjian Peak soar into the sky and shake the whole area. Ever since Su Yi left the barbarian city, he had never been defeated by anyone of the same generation. He had always easily defeated his peers. Even the Soul Controller Yun Lingfeng did not have much difficulty defeating him not long ago. But now, Su Yi had encountered an opponent. He was fighting a bitter battle and had consumed a lot of his energy. You're still at the 5th level of Origin Spirit Realm. So what if you have the Emperor Sparrow's blood essence? You won't be able to comprehend much from it. What a waste! Mu Yao shouted. She could feel that the Emperor Sparrow's blood essence that Su Yi had obtained was definitely not simple. But she was at the 7th level of Origin Spirit Realm. If this continued, Su Yi would not be able to hold on. Su Yi also felt that he was at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation level. Mu Yao was at the 7th level of Origin Spirit Realm after all. She would not be able to hold on for long if she relied on her surging Yuan-Qi. After all, there was a difference of 2 levels of cultivation. Su Yi knew that he was not able to fully utilize his advantage. But Su Yi was not afraid. He had not reached the point where he had to use all his trump cards. If he used the Origin Supreme technique, his battle strength should be able to increase by a level. But now was not the time. He had already cultivated the Heavenly Fei Ancient Scripture for some time. The Heavenly Fei Ancient Scripture was also extraordinary and had great method. You're going to lose! Mu Yao shouted as a smile appeared on her face. She could feel that she was gradually gaining the upper hand. She urged the great golden-winged ping phantom beneath her feet to continuously suppress Su-yi. Guji, hissing sounds pierced through the clouds and cracked rocks. The two constantly clashed, bursting forth with dazzling flames and golden light. Violent gales and energy spread out, causing the void to rumble. If not for the traps set up on the dueling stage, it would have long been reduced to dust. Not to mention the disciples present, even the elders and protectors on the high platform were shocked by this kind of battle, and their eyes were trembling. These two youths were simply a little too strong. This guy is actually so strong. Gong Qi looked at the youth on the dueling stage. His eyes were bright and filled with shock. They are already so much stronger. Ryugan River, O Luo, Gu Chenyu, and the other top experts on the sword pagodas were shocked. Their eyes were filled with loneliness. It turned out that their so-called excellent talents were not worth mentioning in front of the two youths on the dueling stage. The two youths had far surpassed them. Boom! The Emperor's Sparrow Phantom and the great golden-winged Ping clashed once again. The surroundings rumbled as the dueling stage trembled incessantly. Golden light and flames swept out. "You're really going to lose." Mu Yao smiled. Her face was also very pale. She had also expended a lot of energy. She could feel that Su-yi could no longer hold on. Walala, Su-yi suffered a loss. The Emperor's Sparrow Phantom was crumbling, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. But at this moment, as the Emperor's Sparrow Phantom crumbled, Su-yi did not fall from the sky. Behind him, a bright red light suddenly spread out. A pair of Yuan Qi wings instantly condensed, and an ancient pressure spread out from his feet. Mysterious and ancient runes began to flow on Su-yi's feet. Strange runes surged out, and a vast aura swept across the area. At this moment, Su-yi's temperament suddenly changed. It was as if a god had awakened. His robe fluttered, and his black hair fluttered behind him. The aura on his body seemed to carry the fury of thunder. It was powerful and terrifying, as if a god of war had descended to the world. Fury of the 8 desolates, violent shadow shatters the 9 underworlds. Footprints rushed out as fast as lightning. They were incomparably domineering and majestic. In an instant, endless footprints erupted. The light gathered and exploded like a small sun. The space was distorted, and the gorgeous energy light surged. The pressure was impressive. Awoo! When such footprints rushed out, the barbaric beasts around Lingjian Peak trembled and kept roaring. At this moment, the golden pupils of the great golden-winged Ping Phantom seemed to have felt something. It was also trembling. Then, the phantom, which was already extremely dim, was directly shattered. What kind of martial skill is this? This kind of martial skill made the elders and protectors on the high platform solemnly and respectfully stunned. Today, they had already been shocked countless times. Mu Yao's expression changed. She did not expect that Su-yi would still have such a blow. Chapter 556. There was no way to avoid it. Mu Yao waved her hand and exploded with all her strength. Her slender jade-like hand was completely covered in golden light. She saw the essence clearly and collided with one of the footprints, emitting a dazzling energy light. Rumble! Just as they made contact, Mu Yao's delicate body trembled violently. A mouthful of dark red blood flowed out from her delicate red lips. Her charming and graceful body immediately shot out of the dueling platform from mid-air. Bang! Mu Yao heavily smashed down, and the impact caused the entire dueling platform to rumble and tremble. Everyone's heartbeat violently trembled along with Mu Yao's fall. At this moment, Su-yi did not delay. This was a rare opportunity. As Mu Yao smashed down, Su-yi gathered the last of his Yuan Qi at his right foot. A dazzling light flashed in his eyes like lightning as he swooped down. His ragged clothes fluttered and his hair fluttered behind him. Su-yi's right foot suddenly stomped down. A Yuan Qi vortex swept out like a storm under his foot. In a short moment, he directly stomped down. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air for Mu Yao. Mu Yao felt it and quickly struggled to get up. Her hands pointed forward, and she rolled forward in a rather embarrassing manner, like a lazy donkey rolling. Although it was a bit embarrassing, Mu Yao had effectively avoided it. Boom! Su Yi's foot landed on the ground where Mu Yao had smashed down. The dueling platform trembled and the air rumbled. From where Su Yi's foot landed, rings of Yuan Qi energy swept out like waves on the dueling platform. The surrounding air waves were shaken to the point of rapidly fluctuating. Mu Yao had avoided it, but this was Su Yi's 8 Desolation Fury. A terrifying impact force immediately rushed up and sent her delicate body flying. Mu Yao spat out a mouthful of blood. This blood was very strange, it had a faint golden color. Mu Yao crashed onto the stage once again. Her body brushed against the ground as she flew backwards. She only managed to stop herself when she was almost at the edge of the stage. Su Yi's body fell to the ground. The Yuan Qi wings on his back were retracted. His face was pale and there were traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Su Yi's aura was weak and he was gasping for breath. There was no way he could endure this kind of consumption. Mu Yao stood up as she stuffed some medicinal pills into her mouth. Her hair was disheveled, and her orange robes were stained with blood. She cut a sorry figure as she wiped the blood from the corners of her mouth. Her golden eyes stared at Su Yi as fluctuations of power gushed forth unceasingly. To be able to injure me, you really exceeded my expectations. But now, I'm afraid you're already an arrow at the end of its flight. Do you still have the strength to fight? Mu Yao opened her mouth. She had just suffered a great loss, but she still had the strength to fight. However, her opponent was already an arrow at the end of its flight. She was afraid that he would no longer be able to fight. Su Yi was secretly moved. He did not expect this woman to still have the strength to fight. Just now, he had taken the opportunity to activate the Primeval Chaos Supreme technique and used the second and first kicks of the Wrath of the 8 Desolates to severely injure Mu Yao. Su Yi's own consumption was too great. Slightly gritting his teeth, Su Yi immediately removed the broken sword from his back. A gentle force wrapped around it and he threw it to the side. The few medicinal pills in the space bag were directly stuffed into his mouth and swallowed. After removing the broken sword that weighed more than 1,000 kilograms on his back, Su Yi immediately felt an indescribable ease in his body. It was as if his entire body was floating. What is he doing? Su Yi's actions surprised everyone. The strange broken sword on Su Yi's back had always been very eye-catching. No one had ever seen him remove it with their own eyes. However, at this moment, Su Yi was actually removing the sword. Only on the high platform, Elder Su's gaze fluctuated. Mu Yao made her move. She had just suffered a great loss, so she was no longer careless. Her beautiful figure swept out and waved her palm to meet the attack. Come on! Su Yi shouted softly. Yuan Qi swept out from the soles of his feet, and his figure immediately dragged out a series of afterimages. As some people were suddenly surprised. At this moment, almost everyone present could feel that Su Yi's speed had suddenly leaped to a higher level compared to before. Mu Yao's palm missed and her expression changed. She felt the change in Su Yi. His speed had soared out of nowhere. Su Yi's figure appeared beside the former like a ghost. A palm print was sent out and red light filled the air. Mu Yao's expression darkened, and she quickly retreated. Instantly, the two of them fought from mid-air back to the battle stage, and continued to fight in the most direct way. Bang bang! Not long after, the two of them collided, and a muffled sound was heard. Su Yi's speed soared, and his movements were unpredictable. It was so fast that it was dazzling. Chilala with Su Yi's current speed, the afterimages of the real and the fake made Mu Yao unable to see clearly. She was greatly affected, and the more she fought, the more surprised she was. Bang bang! The two of them occasionally collided, and Mu Yao's delicate body was constantly pushed back. I understand now. Su Yi's sword must have a problem. I'm afraid it's not simple. On the high platform, some elders saw the clues. Su Yi's sword was not simple. If my guess is right, Su Yi has been carrying a heavy sword on his back. He has been using this method to temper himself, the second elder said, and also saw the clues. That sword weighs more than 1,000 pounds, Elder Su said. He had come into contact with that sword before, and it had a history, but even he could not see through it. What? Hearing this, the group of elders and protectors trembled. Su Yi had been carrying a heavy sword on his back. This kind of tempering was too shocking. It was no wonder that Su Yi's speed and attack power soared after removing the heavy sword. He has been carrying the shackles all this time, some protectors exclaimed. It turned out that Su Yi had been carrying the shackles from the beginning. If he had removed the shackles earlier, Yunling Feng and the others would have lost even more miserably. Good boy. Some elders were full of praises for Su Yi. How many people could persevere through such a method of tempering? There was definitely a reason why Su Yi was so strong. Bang! With a low muffled sound, Mu Yao was once again pushed back. She was affected by Su Yi's speed and suffered a lot. Puff! Blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth again. Mu Yao's delicate body staggered. Fight! Su Yi was unforgiving. Relying on his current speed, he continued to attack. Mu Yao's eyes were already dignified. She felt a sense of danger. She also felt that the sword on Su Yi's back was not simple. Deng Deng, H Cool and Craftsman %F Net Unique T Genuine V, W0 He is all pirated 5 once again, Mu Yao staggered back. Faint golden blood dripped from the corner of her mouth, adding a bit of poignant beauty. Bang! Su Yi's figure appeared like a ghost, and his fist landed heavily on Mu Yao's shoulder. Mu Yao had nowhere to retreat. It was too late to dodge. Her Yuan Qi defense was shattered, and her shoulder was broken. Even the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Her delicate body was sent flying and once again smashed onto the stage. Puff! Blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Her body was already stained with blood, and her orange clothes were dyed red. Mu Yao crawled up. Her charming face was now as pale as ash. Her hair was disheveled, and her orange clothes were tattered. So strong. Su Yi, that guy, doesn't know how to be gentle with women. Everyone trembled. Su Yi, that guy was too ruthless. He did not know how to be gentle with women. Boss Su Yi is so insanely strong. Chapter 557. Originally, Su Yi had said that he would definitely take first place today. Although they knew that Su Yi was powerful, they did not expect Su Yi to be so powerful. After all, Yunling Feng, Ryugan River, and the others were all powerful existences. But now, Zhang Qing, Lu Ji, and the others knew that Mu Yao and Su Yi were even more powerful. And looking at the situation, with Boss Su Yi's insane strength time and time again, it was possible for him to take first place. Su Yi, Su Yi. With cheers and cheers, the outer sect disciples were completely shocked and cheered. In this myriad sword conference, Su Yi represented the outer sect disciples and made those direct disciples suffer. This was definitely the most eye-catching performance of the outer sect disciples in the entire history of Xinjiang Gate. I didn't expect that you would be able to make me use my full strength. Hearing the cheers and shouts from all around, Mu Yao looked at Su Yi. The golden pupils in her moving eyes fluctuated, and the hand seals in her delicate hands changed. Boom! As Mu Yao's hand seals formed, a new aura suddenly fluctuated from her delicate body, and a monstrous golden light swept out from her body. At this moment, Mu Yao's body seemed to be changing, and her skin was filled with a golden luster. Amidst the flickering light, an indescribable, overbearing and sharp aura spread out from within Mu Yao's body. Numerous strange golden rays of light spread over her body. Both of her arms appeared to be swelling, and the bones in her entire body emitted cracking sounds. When this change appeared, on the high platform, Situ Luyun, Elder Su, the second elder, the third elder, and a few other elders' eyes suddenly tensed up, and their expressions changed greatly. Sect leader, once Mu Yao uses her full strength, I'm afraid that she will be exposed. The right guardian looked at the dueling stage, and his expression changed as he immediately said to Situ Luyun. In any case, it will be exposed sooner or later. I'm afraid there's no way to stop it now. Situ Luyun smiled bitterly. In the entire Xinjian Gate, even most of the elders did not know Mu Yao's true identity. But now there was no way for him to continue hiding. Who would have thought that Mu Yao would actually reach the final step? The second elder's pupil shrank slightly, but there was no surprise on his face, as if he already knew something. Looks like Su Yi is going to lose. The third elder spoke. He was shocked by Su Yi's strength. Su Yi was indeed a heaven-grade talent. If he was also at the 7th level of the Origin Spirit stage, his current performance would be enough to battle with Mu Yao. But now Mu Yao was going to use her full strength. With her hidden secret, once it was revealed, only heaven-ranked geniuses of the same level would be able to fight her. Demonic aura. On the dueling stage, Su Yi's gaze was fixed on Mu Yao's body. At this moment, Mu Yao's originally alluring body had undergone a strange change. It seemed to have expanded quite a bit, especially her hands. Golden light filled the air and became sharp. On her palms, there was a feather-like golden light overflowing. More importantly, a terrifying demonic aura was surging and rippling from within her lithe and delicate body. Around the Lingjian Peak, those barbaric beast mounts that were resting and entrenched felt the demonic aura from the dueling stage and were constantly roaring and trembling. True demonic aura. CLB Genuine First Edition HFA. Su Yi's gaze shook. This demonic aura had always been felt from Mu Yao's body, but it was only faintly discernible. At this moment it was truly spreading out. With the Origin Supreme technique, Su Yi could clearly feel that this was a true demonic aura, which should never appear on a human being. What shocked Su Yi even more was that the degree of this demonic aura was much stronger than that of the Demon Royal in Kanglan City. It was exactly the same as the demonic aura of the Golden Winged Rock that was formed by Mu Yao's Pneuma. But at this moment, this demonic aura was like the arrival of a real rock. What's going on? What a terrifying aura! At this moment, the eyes of the entire Lingjian Peak were looking at the changes on Mu Yao's body. They were all shocked. During the changes on Mu Yao's body, the billowing aura had condensed into a huge golden winged rock shadow behind her. From a distance, at this moment, Mu Yao and the golden winged rock shadow behind her were completely integrated, as if she had transformed into a real golden winged rock. Her aura was overbearing and fierce. Golden winged rock, when the news spreads, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of movements. Looking at the changes on Mu Yao's body at this moment, Situ Luyun's eyes narrowed. He was very clear about Mu Yao's identity. Once it was spread out, the entire Zhongzhou would be stirred up. Can Su Yi still fight? The second elder, the third elder, and the others were also staring intently at this moment. At this moment, Mu Yao did not hold back, proving that Su Yi was indeed a monstrous existence. It was precisely because they knew the identity of Mu Yao, but after all, Su Yi's cultivation was 2 levels lower than hers. Could the legendary heaven-rank talent be able to cross 2 levels of cultivation? If you still have a trump card, then use it. Otherwise, you are destined to lose. Mu Yao said. At this moment, her figure had completely integrated with the big name's shadow, as if they were one. Her body was suspended in midair, as if covered by a domain. Her arms and slender hands moved together with the wings of the rock, turning into a golden-winged rock. Golden light filled the sky, and her figure disappeared in the shocking shadow, making the shadow completely solidify, as if a real rock had descended. Oh my God, what kind of technique is this? Looking at the golden-winged rock spreading out on the battle stage, the audience was in an uproar. Even from a distance, they could feel the fierce and overbearing pressure, and their hearts and souls trembled. Sui looked at the former's technique, and his eyes narrowed. That terrifying and overbearing aura made him feel that Mu Yao had really transformed into a golden-winged rock at this moment. Boom! The last bit of primordial qi in his body gushed out, and a red light fluctuated, enveloping him. Ku! The golden-winged rock let out a clear cry, and suddenly, its huge body was filled with golden light. Layer upon layer of visible golden feathers were like sharp scales, and it swooped down towards Sui with a whistling sound. Sui focused and raised his fist to meet the attack. With a boom, he punched out with all his strength. Sui's fist was wrapped in resplendent light. This was the overlord fist of Sui. Within his fist, there was a terrifying force that was like an erupting volcano. A clear sound of wind and thunder could be heard, rumbling like thunder. It was as if an overlord had awoken, as if an emperor had descended and an enormous pressure was being emitted. Under this punch, the golden light was shattered, and turned into a golden rain of light, which made people gasp. At this moment, Sui still had such a terrifying power. Chapter 558. However, it was a pity that Sui seemed to be somewhat powerless. His cultivation level was also at a disadvantage, and he was immediately suppressed. The overwhelming golden light swept across, and Sui was directly shaken and fell to the ground in the distance. Not good, Sui spat out blood from his mouth. He immediately jumped up and quickly retreated. At this moment, Mu Yao's strange transformation was like a real rock. Its power and fighting strength were much stronger than when it was at its peak. As Sui retreated, the golden rock had already appeared behind him. Its golden wings flapped fiercely, and a gust of wind blew, forming a golden vortex that quickly rushed forward, twisting the air and making the sound of wind and thunder. Why update most fast? V equals Sui was surprised. He quickly rushed out with the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps, but he was also swept up and could not escape. The whole arena trembled, and with a roar, a dazzling golden light exploded. At this moment, the rock that Mu Yao had transformed into was too powerful, making everyone gasp. Pucci, Sui was shaken again and fell from the golden light. He spat out blood and fell heavily to the ground. Ku! The clear cry of the rock pierced through the clouds and cracked the rocks. The great rock descended, golden light flashing everywhere as it flapped its wings. It was like a golden rain of light, bringing with it a tornado-like golden storm. Hidden within the storm was an incomparably sharp golden light. Layers upon layers formed into hundreds of illusory images that directly descended, enveloping Sui. Not good, Sui is going to lose, the audience exclaimed. At this moment, no one felt that Sui was weak. He was a monstrous existence. However, at this moment, the rock that Mu Yao had transformed into was too overbearing and fierce. Under such suppression, Sui was going to be defeated. The golden light shrouded the arena and also enveloped Sui. It was incomparably overbearing and fierce, like a hurricane rotating, causing the entire arena to make a strange trembling sound. A rock was looming in the golden light hurricane, like a rock descending to the ninth heaven, with a fierce pressure suppressing everything. The clouds moved in all directions, and the Lingjian peak was mighty and endless. Oh my God! Everyone was shocked. Even the eyes of the guardian elders on the high platform were filled with ripples at this time. Elder Su sat upright, but at this moment, the gaze in his eyes was also focused, and he secretly gripped the armrest tightly. Humph, he's going to lose in the end. It's best if he's killed. Among the crowd, Fu Tingming and his brother saw another window from hell. Their expressions were extremely gloomy as they gloated and cursed in anticipation. Situ Muyang, Su Jiahui, and the others all frowned. If it was the same 7th level origin spirit realm, perhaps Su-Yi wouldn't have lost. On the high platform, an elder exclaimed. He felt that Su-Yi was about to lose, but if both of them were at the same 7th level origin spirit stage, Su-Yi would probably not lose. Su-Yi won't be below Mu Yao. Is our Xinjian gate going to prosper this time? Some elders were trembling with excitement. At this moment, the outcome of the battle was no longer important. No matter who won or lost, they were all disciples of the Xinjian gate. With such an outstanding group of young disciples, in time, the Xinjian gate would prosper the central state. Situ Luyan frowned. Her gaze was fixed on the battle stage that was enveloped in golden light. She shook her head slightly and said softly, "Why do I feel that it's not over yet? Perhaps Su-Yi still has a trump card." Su-Yi still has a trump card? The right protector's gaze trembled as she stared intently at the battle stage. Under the fierce pressure that emanated from the stage, even an 8th level origin spirit stage practitioner would have been torn to shreds. Could it be that Su-Yi still has a trump card at this moment? In the crowd, Gong Qi's slender hands were tightly clenched into fists. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on the battle stage. If one was the slightest bit careless, even if one didn't die, one would be severely injured. For some reason, when she sensed that terrifying aura, Gong Qi couldn't help but worry about Su-Yi's safety. The second elder's eyes narrowed as he stared at the battle stage. Suddenly, ripples surged out from the second elder's eyes. With a hint of astonishment, he said, "As expected, Su-Yi still has a trump card." As the second elder's voice fell, an equally massive divine bird quietly appeared above the golden light that enveloped the battle stage under the stunned gazes of everyone present. At this moment, an incomparably shocked fluctuation appeared in the eyes of the golden-winged great roc. The divine bird gradually emerged, becoming clearer and clearer. Finally, it completely spread its wings and appeared on the battle stage. Under the gaze of everyone present, the temperature of the entire Lingjian peak became scorching hot. A touch of astonishment surfaced on everyone's shocked faces. Boom! From the fierce golden light hurricane, endless golden light erupted. Golden flames sprinkled from the void, almost drowning the void of Lingjian Peak. At this moment, the Lingjian Peak was shining brightly. The divine clouds were densely covered, and the sound of wind and thunder was incessant. Buzz buzz. Above the void there was a faint sound of worship, as if a god was about to come into being. The entire Lingjian Peak was boiling. An ancient aura surged, as if an ancient being was about to descend. "Oh my God, what's going on?" Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbstruck. This was too shocking. Coo! The golden light was as bright as the clouds, and a hissing sound that pierced through the clouds and cracked the stones suddenly shocked the world. It was as if something was awakening. A divine bird like a phoenix completely spread its wings, filled with red flames, and looked down on the world. Its terrifying aura was extremely shocking. This beast shadow was not inferior to the former great roc at this moment. It was like a divine bird that had transcended the ancient times. Its red eyes seemed to contain 2 seas of fire, like 2 rising suns. The divine bird and the great roc faced each other. The surging pressure from the ancient times came across time and space. There was an ancient worship chant in the air, and the wind and thunder were incessant. That terrible power swept through the entire Xinjian gate. At this moment, the savage beasts in the entire Xinjian gate were also affected. They roared in response to the Lingjian Peak. This divine bird shadow was like a living creature. It was exactly the same as the Emperor Sparrow that Su-Yi began to transform. But at this moment, this divine bird shadow was more and more like a living creature. Vaguely, Su-Yi's figure appeared in it, and it seemed that he had merged with the Emperor Sparrow's shadow. Is this the arrival of the Emperor Sparrow? Some elders trembled, and their eyes lit up. Could it be that Su-Yi is also from the Emperor Sparrow's lineage, and has the same origin as Mu Yao? Some elders trembled. At this moment, the pressure that spread out from the Emperor's sparrow was even more powerful than the great rock. Sui also has some means. He seems to be able to merge with the power of the Emperor's sparrow. The second elder saw some clues. Sui and Mu Yao's identities should be different, but their means were extremely terrifying. Elder Su's eyes rippled. At this moment, he could no longer calm down. What a strong pressure! The terrifying demonic aura spread out from the Emperor Sparrow's shadow, causing the blood in the disciples' bodies to begin to boil. The image of the heavenly demon, the image of all beasts, the image of all beasts, the image of creation, the image of creation, the image of heaven, earth, and man. The combination of the inside and outside, the combination of heaven, earth, and man, the demon image is formed from the void. The image of the heavenly demon, shocking the heaven and earth, and making ghosts and gods weep. Coo! A murmur came out from the Emperor Sparrow's shadow. When the last voice fell, the Emperor Sparrow spread its wings. The entire Lingjian peak was incomparably hot. The Emperor Sparrow's huge body directly rushed out. A torrential golden flame suddenly swept out in all directions. The supreme demonic aura was monstrous. Walala! The raging flame swept out and the pressure was impressive. It rushed out in all directions, as if it was enough to burn all living things. That blazing aura, just as it fluctuated, it made the surrounding disciples feel a sense of danger from the depths of their souls. Their hearts palpitated. The golden-winged great rock also moved. It was as if the real great rock had descended to the world. Its overbearing and terrifying aura swept across the vast sky, crushing everything in its path. The two huge shadows fiercely collided with each other under everyone's fearful gazes. Rumble, the space seemed to be distorted. Wind and clouds surged in this part of the world. Waves of terrifying energy suddenly came from all directions, spreading out with a huge pressure. The terrifying power seemed to have caused the entire Lingjian peak to tremble. It was shocking to the soul. Awo! The wind and clouds surged. Light burst out, and a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. It was as if there was a space storm. Faintly, the sun, the moon, and the stars rotated. Ancient beasts roared, and the space rippled like boiling water. Walala, as the two palms collided, the terrifying demonic aura accompanied by a mysterious force spread out in all directions. The void trembled, and a violent wind poured out like a flood. It rushed around the battleground, destroying everything in its way. Not good. On the high platform, some elders recovered from the shock. The terrifying force exploded. Among the surrounding disciples on the battleground, only a few of them were qualified to be affected. A thin and small figure appeared in the void above the battleground. A bright light immediately enveloped the entire void above the battleground. Rumble, the terrifying aftershock from all directions swept through the light shield. The light of the collision burst out, but it immediately disappeared. Break! In the monstrous energy storm, Su-Yi shouted, and the body of the Emperor's sparrow appeared in front of the rock. The golden light was strong. Su-Yi's figure and the Emperor Sparrow's shadow merged into one. The light spread out in all directions. It was as if the real Emperor Sparrow had descended. Bathed in golden flames, it swept down and hit the body of the rock. Boom! The void roared, and the golden light was shattered like rain. The rock's shadow fell and shattered inch by inch. A graceful body fell from midair, spitting out blood and smashing on the battleground. Bang! The entire battleground trembled, and the light on Mu Yao's body dimmed. Deng deng! The Emperor Sparrow's shadow also disappeared. Su-Yi's figure fell from midair and staggered back. After a few steps, Su-Yi stabilized his retreat. Light flashed in his eyes as he stared at Mu Yao, who was struggling to get up. On the battleground, the light shield disappeared, and Elder Su's figure was suspended in midair. Just now, it was Elder Su who had stepped in to protect him. Otherwise, just the frightening aftershock from the impact alone would have affected countless disciples in the surroundings. On the entire Spirit Sword Peak, all the terrible movements disappeared, but the surroundings were strangely quiet. Everyone's heart was tense. Chapter 559. Who won? All eyes were on the King's Field, and all hearts were in their throats. Especially Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, and other disciples, their eyes were wide open. The elders and protectors on the high platform were secretly clenching their fists at this moment. The entire Lingjian Peak was dead silent, and all the movements had disappeared. At this moment, the two young figures were once again facing each other on the platform, and they seemed to be at loggerheads for no reason. All eyes fell on the thin boy and the graceful girl at this moment, and their hearts could not help but tighten as they waited with bated breath. From the bodies of those two young men and women, the entire audience had witnessed with their own eyes what it meant to have abnormal and monstrous talent. Deng Deng, suddenly Mu Yao, who had just got up, looked at Su Yi with her golden eyes, and her feet could not help but stagger back a few steps. Her pale lips were stained with pale golden blood, which added a kind of sad beauty. The outcome had been decided. Mu Yao lost. On the high platform, the elders and protectors were relieved. They knew in their hearts that Mu Yao had lost, and the outcome had been completely decided. God bless my Xinjian gate. This time, my Xinjian gate will prosper. Some elders' eyes surged with waves, and they could not bear the shock and excitement in their hearts. The outcome on the platform was not too important. This time, the young generation of disciples that emerged in the Myriad Sword Conference were amazing. Especially Su Yi, Mu Yao, Yunling Feng, and Ryugan River, these four people, how magnificent they were. This was a rare talent that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. This time, four of them had appeared in the Divine Sword sect. Especially Su Yi and Mu Yao, how amazing they were. If the news spread out, it would be enough to shake the whole Zhongzhou. Elder Su's clenched fists also loosened a little, and on his face, there was a trace of a smile in his eyes, which disappeared without a trace, and then returned to normal. Under countless gazes on the platform, Mu Yao once again steadied her steps, waved her sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth, and her golden eyes stared at Su Yi. After a long while, the golden light in Mu Yao's eyes slowly returned to clarity. Her silver teeth with bloodstains bit the corner of her lips, and her voice was a little hoarse. She said to Su Yi, "I lost." Su Yi did not speak, and the light in his eyes also returned to normal, returning to a deep and bright, as if the aura just now had not appeared at all. "You surprised me, but don't be happy too early, it won't be long before I defeat you." Mu Yao's slightly hoarse voice fell. She looked at Su Yi one more time and then turned to leave. Although she was unwilling in her heart, how could she not know that the young man in front of her was much more powerful than those geniuses in Xinjian Gate? Whether it was his temperament or the degree of fierceness of his moves, they were all stronger than those geniuses in Xinjian Gate. His last move, which was filled with demonic qi, made her even more shocked. "Okay, you're always welcome." Looking at Mu Yao's back as she left, Su Yi smiled faintly, and then his eyes moved slightly, and his eyebrows wrinkled slightly, as if he was not very happy. Su Yi was originally looking forward to this battle and was excited. However, at this moment, although he had won, Su Yi was not too happy. There were so many hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the younger generation in Xinjian Gate. There were powerful existences like Mu Yao, Ryugan River, and Yunling Feng. Especially Mu Yao, Su Yi had already used all his strength just now, but in the end, he barely won. The sacred mountain was much larger and more powerful than Xinjian Gate. It was a true first-rate force in Zhongzhou, and one could imagine the number of young people in the gate, and the number of experts in the sacred mountain was even more. The sacred mountain was huge, and the experts were as numerous as the clouds. It would be more difficult than ascending to the heavens to set foot on the sacred mountain one day. A long breath was exhaled from his abdomen, and a few healing pills were stuffed into his mouth. With Su Yi's current status, he naturally did not feel any heartache when consuming pills. No matter what, he had already won the championship this time, and obtained first place in the Myriad Sword Conference. Su Yi hoped that the supreme benefits mentioned in Xinjian Gate would allow him to take another step forward. This way, he would be one step closer to ascending the sacred mountain one day. Clang, on behalf of Xinjian Gate, I announce that in this Myriad Sword Conference, the champion is the disciple of the 36th Sword Peak. The melodious sound of the bell was accompanied by a vigorous voice. On the high platform, sect leader Situ Luyun personally stood up and looked at the arena. There was light flowing in his eyes, and his voice was mixed with yuan qi, vigorous and ear-splitting. The last two words were said word by word, Su Yi. Such a voice, like a low thunder, resounded throughout the entire Lingjian Peak, and spread toward the entire Xinjian Gate. Boom! When sect leader Situ Luyun's voice fell, the entire Lingjian Peak erupted with a sound wave that went straight to the sky. In this sound wave there was the cheering of the outer court disciples, there was the shock of the inner court disciples and the pro-disciples, there were also the exclamations of the older disciples, there were even many female disciples whose hearts trembled, and ripples appeared in their hearts. He won. Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, and the others clearly heard the result, but they still couldn't believe it. Their mouths were wide open, and only when they listened to the boiling sound wave that went straight to the sky, did they feel certain in their hearts. They didn't expect that Su Yi really did it, and really won the first place of the Myriad Sword Conference today. Su Yi boss. Su Yi boss. Zhang Qing, Lu Ji, Tan Chao, Situ Muyang, and more than a dozen outer court disciples of the 36th Sword Peak drilled out of the crowd and immediately rushed to the arena. No one stopped them, and the duel was over. What's more, they were all disciples of the 36th Sword Peak. In this Myriad Sword Conference, the 36th Sword Peak is in the limelight. I said, I must win the first place in the Myriad Sword Conference, and then I will return the points I borrowed from you 100 times. Looking at Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, and the others who ran in front of him, Su Yi's pale face also revealed a smile. Brother Su Yi, you've already returned them to me 1,000 times over. Su Jiahui's eyes trembled, and she was so excited that her eyes were wet. The young man in front of her really did it, and as for those insignificant points, he had already returned them to her 1,000 times over. You actually hit it so well. Situ Muyang stared at Su Yi. He could tell that Su Yi had never used his full strength in the Myriad Sword battlefield, and had been hiding it all along. Su Yi boss is invincible. Su Yi boss is too awesome. Zhang Qing, Tan Chao, Lu Ji, and the others rushed out, and without any explanation, they directly lifted Su Yi up and continuously congratulated him. Zhang Qing, Lu Ji, be careful, brother Su Yi is still injured. Su Jiahui was suddenly very nervous, afraid that she would hurt Su Yi, but she was also very happy. Congratulations, Elder Su. Congratulations to Elder Su. Which Sword Peak can compare to the 36th Sword Peak this time? Chapter 560. On the high platform, the group of elders and protectors congratulated Elder Su. No one could compare to the limelight of the 36 sword peaks in this Myriad Sword Conference. How sharp were their eyes! Even that little girl, Su Jiahui, was a good seedling. Especially that Su Yi, who no one knew where Elder Su came from. In short, Elder Su had received a good disciple this time. Congratulations to you too. Elder Su nodded and responded to everyone with a slight smile on his face. I'm afraid that today's news will not be able to be sealed. It should spread out very soon. I'm afraid that a few disciples will be noticed by others. An elder said. A grand event like the Myriad Sword Conference had always been noticed by the other first-rate forces in the central region. Although this was within Xinjiang Gate, there would definitely be spies arranged by other forces. Just like how Xinjiang Gate had always been racking their brains to arrange spies in other forces, such a grand event could not be sealed. Yunlingfeng, Ryugan River, especially Mu Yao and Su Yi, would most likely be noticed by other forces very soon. It seems that it won't be long before the names of Mu Yao and Su Yi spread throughout the central region. An elder said with a smile. With Mu Yao and Su Yi's performance today, the names of these two dark horses would be remembered by various forces in the central region in a very short period of time. Sita Liuyun's eyes moved slightly, as if he was thinking about something. He was very clear that if such a young man could really stay in Xinjiang Gate, it would be a great fortune for Xinjiang Gate. Humph! In the square, Gong Qi snorted faintly. Her beautiful eyes rippled as she looked at the young man who was surrounded by people on the arena. Where did this kid come from? Ryugan River, Gu Chenyu, O Luo, and the others were all still in shock. Only now did they know that so many people had besieged that guy in the Myriad Sword battlefield. That guy was running around not because he was afraid of them, but because he did not want to fight with them at all. Otherwise, who would be his opponent? They would only be trampled on. At dusk, on the 36th Sword Peak. In the courtyard hall, Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, Lu Ji Tanchao, and Wang Fan stood quietly. They did not dare to raise their eyes and looked very nervous. Pack up. Tomorrow you will go to the 9th Sword Peak. Elder Su sat upright and looked at the 5 disciples in front of him as he spoke. Elder Su, I know my mistake, I know my mistake. Please don't expel me. I want to stay. Hearing this, Su Jiahui's eyes trembled and her beautiful face turned pale. She immediately knelt on the ground, thinking that she had made a big mistake and was about to be expelled by Elder Su. Get up. You didn't do anything wrong. In the eyes of outsiders, Yin and Yang were unpredictable. The eccentric Elder Su stood up and reached out to pull Su Jiahui up. Her eyes were filled with love as she said, Elder Duan told me that she will teach you well. This is the best for you. Cultivate well in the future. Elder Su, Su Jiahui's eyes flickered. Elder Su interrupted Su Jiahui's words and said, Go, your talent is not bad. Don't disappoint your family's expectations of you. The nameless technique that I asked you to cultivate, have you cultivated it? Elder, this disciple has started cultivating. Su Jiahui nodded. Not long after she arrived at the 36th Sword Peak, Elder Su gave her a nameless cultivation technique and told her not to tell others. She had been practicing it all these years. Zhang Qing, Lu Ji, and the others were envious. No wonder Su Jiahui was several years younger than them, but she had always been stronger than them on the 36th Sword Peak. It turned out that Elder Su had secretly given her special training, which made them envious. Although that cultivation technique is not a treasure of heaven and earth, it has a good origin. The first day you came to the 36th Sword Peak, I saw that you had good talent. I don't want to ruin you. These years on the 36th Sword Peak, you have honed your temperament. It will be good for you in the future. When you come to the 9th Sword Peak, you must work hard to cultivate. Don't disgrace the name of Xinjiang Gate. Elder Su's voice fell, and he handed a small jade bottle to Su Jiahui. There are some elixirs in here, which have the effect of washing your bones and washing your marrow. Come back here when you have time. As long as I am here, you can come back at any time. Holding the jade bottle handed over by Elder Su, Su Jiahui's eyes were moist. Thank you very much, Elder Su. Su Jiahui knelt down and kowtowed 3 times. Her throat was choked with sobs. But if you don't work hard in the future, don't come back. Elder Su smiled faintly, and then looked at Zhang Qing, Tan Chao, and the others. Zhang Qing, you also go to Ho Changming's place. And you 3, I believe that with your current talent, it is possible for you to become a pro-disciple of Xinjiang Gate. You can go now. Elder Su, I don't want to go. I want to stay on the 36th sword peak. Zhang Qing immediately knelt down, and her eyes were moist. It was good to stay on the 36th sword peak. Get up, a teacher for a day is a father for life. You have already become a disciple, so go and work hard. Don't embarrass the 36th sword peak in the future, or I will not forgive you. Elder Su kicked Zhang Qing's butt, raised his eyebrows and said in a gentle voice, You can come back and visit when you have time. Yes, Elder Su. Zhang Qing kowtowed. She didn't know why, but she suddenly wanted to cry. In the past, she couldn't wait to become an inner disciple or a pro-disciple, but now she felt reluctant to leave. Elder Su, I won't go. I didn't become a disciple. I want to stay on the 36th sword peak. Elder Su, I won't go either. Me too, I won't go either. Tan Chao, Lu Ji, and Wang Fan all knelt down. The three of them had decided that they didn't want to leave. Ba Su-yi was still on the 36th sword peak. You're only an outer disciple here. If you go to other places, you'll most likely become a pro-disciple. Elder Su said as he looked at Lu Ji and the other two. His gaze swept across the three of them. We won't leave even if we're an outer disciple. Since we're on the 36th sword peak, we'll be part of the 36th sword peak. Lu Ji blinked inwardly. They knew very well that everything they had now was because of Boss Su-yi. Even if they could become a pro-disciple at other sword peaks, the benefits they would receive would not be as great as what Boss Su-yi had given them. Without Boss Su-yi, there would be no one to protect them in the future. Elder Su glanced at the three and said in a calm tone, You can stay if you want. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Su's figure instantly disappeared from the hall. Look at section P0 of Chapter O of the D version. This is, at the same time, a sword silently appeared in front of Lu Ji, Tan Chao, and Wang Fan. Buzz! Chapter 561. This is a spiritual weapon. Lu Ji, Wang Fan, and Tan Chao were dumbfounded. This was a treasure sword, and it was a spiritual weapon. Did Elder Su give this to us? Tan Chao was unable to recover for a long time. Did Elder Su give this to them? His first move was to use a treasured sword at the level of a spirit weapon. How extravagant was that? Zhang Qing clicked his tongue, his eyes filled with envy. A spiritual weapon. Even among the direct disciples of Xinjian Gate, there were not many who had one. The 36th sword peak. In the room, Su-yi sat cross-legged, circulating the primordial origin supreme technique. His body was wrapped in light, and wisps of primordial qi lingered on the surface of his body like crimson spirit snakes before finally surging into his body. Under this cycle, the color of Su-yi's face gradually returned to normal, and a rosy hue crept up his cheek. The myriad sword conference had completely come to an end, but for the next few days, the entire Xinjian Gate was still immersed in all kinds of excitement. The sword pagoda stood tall, filled with light, like a giant sword that pierced the sky. On top of it was a ranking list. At this moment, at the highest and most dazzling position, the two words Su-yi bloomed and shone the brightest. Mu Yao, Ryugan River, Yunling Feng, and other names were next. I never thought that Su-yi would be so strong. He is simply a monster. Mu Yao is also strong. She is a real monster. I heard that Mu Yao's identity seems to be related to the demon clan. She has a half-demon body. What? A half-demon body? Isn't that a big taboo? Lower your voice. Mu Yao is the disciple of a grand elder. Her half-demon body is also related to the golden-winged Great Rock clan. Everything that happened in the Myriad Sword Conference was the most lively topic of discussion among the Xinjian Gate disciples. The names of Su-yi and Mu Yao completely resounded throughout Xinjian Gate. Sky Sword Peak. As the sun rose from the east, smoke rose from the incense burner in the pavilion, filling the air with a fragrant scent. Situ Luyun stood in front of the window. He was wearing a black robe embroidered with golden silk patterns. His long black hair was neatly combed into a bun on top of his head. His gaze seemed to be contemplating something. Sect leader, have you made a decision? Elder Bai and the others have always felt that Su Yi's origins are rather unclear. His cultivation methods and skills are not from our Xinjiang gate. They have some objections. The protector of the right said. Logically speaking, Su Yi should have the opportunity to obtain the supreme benefits since he won the championship this time. However, there were also a few elders who felt that although Su Yi won the championship, his origin was unknown. The supreme benefits of Xinjiang Gate could not be allowed to have any mistake. This is really a bit difficult. Where did that kid come from? Situ Liuyun's deep eyes flickered with light. He unconsciously revealed a natural domineering aura. If Su Yi could really be a member of Xinjiang Gate in time, there would be no need to worry about Xinjiang Gate's prosperity. There's also the matter of the myriad sword battlefield. Shouldn't there be a conclusion? The problem is that Elder Su has not personally admitted that Su Yi is his disciple. The protector of the right smiled bitterly. The myriad sword conference had ended, but Su Yi still had things to do in the myriad sword battlefield. Now that it was related to Elder Su, it was not easy to deal with this matter. Most importantly, although it was rumored that Su Yi was Elder Su's disciple, Elder Su had never personally admitted it. If Elder Su admitted that Su Yi was his disciple, it would be much easier to deal with this matter. That would also confirm that Su Yi was a disciple of Xinjiang Gate. You also know Elder Su's temper. It's not easy to ask. Situ Luyun sighed softly. A bitter smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. He sighed softly and said, "That kid is really making things difficult for me. Fine, I'll decide after meeting him." The right protector of the right was also helpless and smiled bitterly. Su Yi's performance this time was really too shocking. However, such monstrous talent was somewhat unknown. Is there any movement in the other forces? Situ Liuyun's expression darkened as he asked the right protector of the right. I just received news that the various mountain sects are also preparing. Many extremely talented people have emerged. Many monstrous and abnormal people have emerged. The right protector of the right spoke with a slightly serious expression. According to the news he received, many monstrous and abnormal talents of the younger generation had also emerged from the other mountain sections. It's not strange. They are also preparing. Situ Luyun said softly. 3 new 80,000 is the fastest, above. _J 3 days had passed since the Myriad Sword Conference. Everything that happened in the final peak of the Myriad Sword Conference spread out at an astonishing speed. In the room, Su Yi maintained his cross-legged sitting posture. The red light on his body was constantly lingering and filled with a majestic and destructive aura. The pale expression on his face had completely disappeared and was replaced by a few strands of red. After a moment, Su Yi withdrew his hand seal and the aura on his body slowly retracted. The red light was like a red spiritual snake that drilled into his body. It was incomparably mysterious. Phew, accompanied by a mouthful of turbid air, his tightly closed eyes opened. A red light flashed and disappeared, and then returned to a deep and tenacious state. His gaze moved slightly. Su Yi got up and jumped off the bed. He pushed the door open and walked out. "Young martial uncle, how are your injuries?" Outside the door, a young man in a black robe appeared. He was not old, but there was a sense of age that was not proportional to his age. He had a slender figure, sword-like eyebrows, phoenix-like eyes, a straight nose and thin lips. His clear eyes were clear as if they did not contain a trace of distracting thoughts or vulgarity. He was delicate like a harmless little brother next door. It was Situ Muyang. "It seems that you are fine." When he saw Su Yi's ruddy face, Situ Muyang could not help but secretly click his tongue. He reckoned that he was thinking too much. The guy in front of him did not look like he was fine at all. Such a serious injury, but he actually recovered without any hindrance. He was simply a monster. Why are you here? Su-yi smiled. Although he had been adjusting his breathing, he had been spying on everything around him. He felt that someone had come, so he stopped. Seeing that it was Situmuyang, Su-yi bitterly smiled and rolled his eyes. Then, he said to Situmuyang, "You should call me by my name. You call me young martial uncle. I am not that old." "That won't do. According to seniority, you are my young martial uncle. Even my father has to call you martial uncle." Situmuyang curled his lips and said, "Anyway, don't think that you can get away with changing your name. You are the champion of the Myriad Sword Conference this time. When the time comes, you will get a lot of good things. I will definitely pay you the changing your name. You call me young martial uncle this and 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 young martial uncle that, you are lowering your seniority. Why bother?" Su-yi's eyes secretly turned as he said to Situmuyang. Situmuyang's eyes turned as he felt that Su-yi's words were not without reason. "How about this? In the future, when there is no one or in front of outsiders, you can just call me by my name. When there are other people from the Xinjiang Gate around, you can call me young martial uncle." Su-yi suggested to Situmuyang. "Okay, in the future, when there are people from the Xinjiang Gate around, I will call you young martial uncle. When there is no one else around, I will call you boss Su-yi like Zhang Qing and the others." Situmuyang smiled and said to Su-yi, "Okay, it's a deal." Su-yi smiled and the two of them raised their hands and high-fived. "I almost forgot. My father asked me to find you at the Sky Sword Peak. It seems that he has something to tell you." Situmuyang said to Su-yi. "Your father is looking for me," Su-yi thought to himself. He guessed that it had something to do with him becoming the champion of the Myriad Sword Conference. It was said that after becoming the champion, he would receive a lot of rewards and benefit. "I'll go talk to Elder Su and go over." Su-yi nodded and wanted to talk to Elder Su. "There's no need. I just went to see the Great Grandmaster. The Great Grandmaster said that you can make your own decisions. He wants to go into seclusion for a few days," Situmuyang said. He had already seen the Great Grandmaster. "Is that so?" Su-yi slightly raised his eyebrows. Situmuyang came to the 36th Sword Peak and rode on a barbarian beast. Su-yi followed him to the Sky Sword Peak. "It won't be long before we go to the Central Continent to participate in the Sacred Martial Assembly. I'm really looking forward to it. With your strength, I'm sure many people will be dumbfounded. You will definitely be able to trample on many arrogant fellows." On the flying barbarian beast, Situmuyang was very excited. When he thought of the Sacred Martial Assembly, his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Sacred Martial Assembly? Su-yi was at a loss. "You don't know about the Sacred Martial Assembly?" Looking at Su-yi's confused expression, Situmuyang felt strange. Could it be that this guy didn't even know about the Sacred Martial Assembly? Su-yi shook his head. He really hadn't heard of the Sacred Martial Assembly. The Sacred Martial Assembly is a grand event for the entire Central Continent's younger generation. As long as you are under the age of 25, you can participate. It is a great opportunity for the disciples of the Central Continent's major forces to perform. The Sacred Martial Assembly is a grand event for the entire Central Continent. Situmuyang told Su-yi that the Sacred Martial Assembly wasn't an ordinary event. It was a grand event for the entire Central Continent. At that time, all the younger generation of the Central Continent would participate. If they could become famous in a single day, their name would shake the entire Central Continent. In the entire Central region, the Sacred Mountain is the largest. However, below the Sacred Mountain, there are many first-rate powers and second-rate powers. First-rate powers such as our Divine Sword Sect, the Heavenly Profound Sect, and so on. When the time comes, the outstanding younger generation of our sects will all go and participate. This myriad sword gathering of the Divine Sword Sect is actually to prepare for the Sacred Martial Assembly. Situ Muyang said. Sui was moved. The Sacred Martial Assembly seemed to be very lively, but it was actually related to the Sacred Mountain. The Sacred Martial Assembly, will the Sacred Mountain also send people to participate? Sui asked Situ Muyang. Situ Muyang nodded and replied to Sui, of course, the Sacred Martial Assembly is led by the Sacred Mountain. All the first-rate and second-rate forces of the Central Continent will participate. All the younger generation of the Central Continent will be able to participate. The young disciples of the Sacred Mountain will also go. It is said that the outstanding disciples of other sects will be able to enter the Sacred Mountain to cultivate for a period of time. This is a great opportunity. Chapter 562. The Sacred Martial Assembly is only held once every 30 years. Every time the Sacred Martial Assembly is held, the various sects and sacred mountains will jointly take out many treasures and elixirs. If one can perform outstandingly, they will be rewarded handsomely. The Sacred Martial Assembly is also a secret competition between the various sections. As Situ Muyang spoke, he was very excited. He continued to say to Sui, Boss Sui, when we go there, we will definitely be able to sweep away all of them. We will have a good fight with the disciples of the various sects and let them know how powerful we are. Sui squeezed out a smile on his face, but his heart was silent for some reason. After a while, the flying savage beast mount arrived at the Sky Sword Peak. HT head DFA Situmuyang did not bring Sui to the main hall of the Sky Sword Peak. Instead, he took a detour to a quiet and quaint courtyard and pavilion at the back of the mountain. The two of them jumped off the flying savage beast mount. Sui looked around. Everywhere was quaint and the pavilion was quiet. Go in. My father should be waiting for you. He seems to be looking for you. I won't be going. Situ Muyang stuck out his tongue and left. Suyi's expression changed slightly. He tidied up his clothes, took a deep breath, and walked into the pavilion. The bluestone floor was quaint, and everything in the pavilion was quaint. It gave off a quiet and mottled aura. After walking through a corridor, they arrived at a side hall. Sui looked around curiously. There were a few ancient paintings and swords hanging in the side hall. There were also a few large mottled chairs. Come into the study. There's no need to be restrained. A voice came from inside. Sui looked up. It was the voice of the sect master, Situ Luyun. Hearing this, Sui walked in slowly. When he entered, he smelled a fragrance. What entered his eyes was the table and chairs carved from fine sandalwood. They were carefully carved with different patterns. There was a delicate and gentle feeling everywhere, but it did not lose its simplicity. Near the window, there was a long table with a few sheets of xian paper and a few brushes on an inkstone. The bright and beautiful sunlight shone through the window, filling the long table with sunlight as well. A muscular figure stood tall and straight, writing with a brush. Sui raised his eyes and looked over. On the xian paper, a huge character 4 sword appeared vividly on the paper. The figure's hand was raised and fell. Turning around, it was the Xinjiang Gate's leader, Situ Luyun. Looking at Sui, Situ Luyun smiled. Greetings, sect leader. Sui bowed. Every time he was in front of Situ Luyun, he felt a kind of pressure for no reason. You don't have to be so courteous. You are Elder Su's disciple. According to the seniority of Xinjiang Gate, you are above me. Situ Luyun intentionally or unintentionally looked at Sui and said with a smile, Has Elder Su ever told you about this? Elder Su has never told me about this, but the sect leader is the sect leader. It is only right for a disciple to salute. Suyi's expression did not reveal any trace. He could tell that Situ Luyun's words seemed to be hinting at something. Haha, Situ Luyun smiled and said, Elder Su is a man of few words. It is also fate that you are able to become Elder Su's disciple. Sui nodded and looked around the study. Sidolian's eyes moved and said to Sui, "This was arranged by Mu Yang's mother before, and it has not changed all these years." Suyi's eyes moved. With Situ Muyang's appearance, compared to the sect leader's wife, he was definitely a beauty. I heard that in the myriad sword battlefield, Mu Yang was taken care of by you. In private, I have to thank you properly. Situ Luyun said to Sui. Sect leader is too serious. Sui looked a little flattered, but he knew in his heart that there was definitely a reason why sect leader Situ Luyun called him here today. It was not just to give him the so-called supreme benefits of Xinjian Gate. Come and take a look. What do you think of the words I just wrote? Situ Luyun smiled and said to Sui, indicating for Sui to come forward and take a look at the words he had written. Disciple really doesn't understand words. Sui said. It doesn't matter if you understand or not. Just take a look. You can speak frankly. Situ Luyun looked at Sui, as if he wanted Sui to take a look. Sui's eyes moved. He took a few steps forward and looked at the huge word, sword, on the rice paper. At first glance, he didn't feel anything, but upon closer inspection, the word sword seemed to have suddenly come to life. There was a sharp aura fluctuation, as if a sword was about to rush out. Good words, Sui said. Why is it good? Situ Luyun asked Sui with interest. This, Sui paused for a moment. Back in the Su family, when he couldn't cultivate, his grandfather, old Master Su Yuntian, also hoped that he could study literature, so he invited many teachers. At that time, he couldn't cultivate, so Sui had devoted himself to studying literature for a period of time. But later on, Sui realized that even though Shiwen was not boring, in this world where the strong were respected, from a certain point of view, strength was indispensable. It wasn't easy to be reborn as a human, so he naturally couldn't be ordinary for the rest of his life. Sect leaders, sword, word strokes are continuous and winding, and the words have many changes. It's really amazing. Upon closer inspection, it's done in one breath, moving left and right, as if it has thousands of changes. It has an imposing manner that makes people feel as if a rock is pressing down on them. It's like the edge of a sharp sword, solemn and majestic, but Su Yi's voice paused, as if he wanted to say something. But what? Situ Luyun's expression had already changed. His gaze fell on Su Yi's body. People say that looking at a word is like looking at a person. When sect leader wrote this word, he seemed to have some misgivings in his heart. When he wrote this word, the tip of the brush was hidden within the strokes. It's called hidden edge. Sui looked at the huge word, sword, on the rice paper and continued. In the strokes, there's a lingering in the line and a lingering in the line. It's less flashy and frivolous. Disciple boldly speculates that sect leader seems to have something in his heart. At the same time, he's thinking of a certain girl. Ha 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 ha. Good good good. Situ Luyun was stunned for a moment, and then laughed out loud. His expression was very surprised. He looked at Sui and said good several times in a row. Disciple is talking nonsense. Sect leader, please don't take offense. Sui said, but there were some fluctuations in his heart. A person's words were like him, and he could see some clues. It seemed that the sect leader of Xinjian Gate seemed to have been enduring something in his heart. You're right. Just now, I did think of Mu Yang's mother. Situ Muyang smiled faintly, then looked at Sui. His expression was a little more serious as he said, I called you here today because I want to have a good chat with you. Can you be honest with me? Finally, it's the main topic, Sui secretly said in his heart, but his expression did not show any trace. He said to Situ Luyun, I don't know what sect leader wants to talk about. Disciple will definitely tell you everything he knows. The origin of your methods is not simple. Where did you come from? What is your master? Have you really become Elder Su's disciple? Chapter 563. Su Yi's pupils constricted slightly. It seemed like the divine sword sect leader in front of him was already suspicious. Su Yi was not surprised. The person in front of him was the gate leader of Xinjian Gate. How could he be so easily fooled? It seems that if I don't say it, the reward for the champion of the Myriad Sword Conference will have nothing to do with me, Su Yi said softly. Of course, you will get the reward you deserve. But some things are related to the entire Xinjian Gate. We have to be careful, Sidu Luyun said to Su Yi. His words were very clear. I have already told Elder Su about my background. I have a sect, but I don't have a master. In the barbaric demon forest, I was seriously injured. Luckily, Elder Su saved me and brought me back to Xinjian Gate. Su Yi said. He did not hide much. As the headmaster of Tian Yao School, he naturally had a sect. As for his master, although he had received guidance from the mysterious person in the mysterious place in the barbaric demon forest and Elder Su, strictly speaking, he did not have a sect. Situ Luyun looked at Su Yi. His eyes moved slightly, as if he was thinking about something. He was also judging whether Su Yi's words were true or false. After a long while, he opened his mouth and said to Su Yi, "Then what is the position of Xinjian Gate to you?" Su Yi raised his eyes and looked at Sidu Luyun. He smiled slightly and said, "The gate leader asked me to be honest. Does this mean that we can have a fair conversation now?" Sidu Luyun was a little surprised. He raised his eyebrows and nodded, saying, "Of course. May I ask, Gate Leader, what position does the Xinjian Gate place me in since you asked me to come here today?" Situ Luyun was a little speechless. How could he not understand the meaning of Su Yi's words? This little guy was dissing him. To ask him to come here and talk about this, it was no doubt that he did not trust him. Elder Su brought you back to Xinjian Gate. You participated in the Myriad Sword Conference, so you are now a disciple of Xinjian Gate. There is no doubt about this. But some things are important and relate to the entire Xinjian Gate. Naturally, you need to be careful. When you reach my position and level one day, you will naturally understand, Sidu Luyun said to Su Yi. I am now a disciple of Xinjian Gate, so I will always be a disciple of Xinjian Gate. My life was saved by Elder Su. I do not dare to forget it. Su Yi looked at Sidu Luyun and said seriously. Sidu Luyun looked at Su Yi for a while. He was confident that he could see the sincerity in Su Yi's words. Then, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "Okay, you are a disciple of Xinjian Gate. Then we can start talking now." After pausing for a moment, Situ Luyun continued to say to Su Yi, "I will not hide it from you. You have won the Myriad Sword Conference this time. Logically speaking, you should be able to obtain supreme benefits from Xinjian Gate. However, there are many elders who are worried about your unknown origin. They are afraid that something might happen to you. You must understand this, so you must also have an attitude that can make me and Xinjian Gate believe that you are a member of Xinjian Gate. Otherwise, those supreme benefits will not fall on your head. Sect Master, you are clearly threatening me." Su Yi raised his eyebrows and did not hold back. If he was really Elder Su's disciple, then this sect master Situ Luyun was a generation younger than him. Is it not obvious enough? Situ Luyun smiled. This was clearly a threat, and it was very obvious. Su Yi was very helpless. He did not expect that the dignified sect master of Xinjian Gate would actually use this trick. If this were to spread out, no one would believe it. What kind of attitude does Xinjian Gate need from me? Su Yi secretly took a deep breath and relaxed. It seemed that the sect master of Xinjian Gate was prepared today. Then, he would just have to deal with whatever came his way. In the Myriad Sword battlefield, you plundered the space bags of so many disciples and bought so many black brick. This is not fake, right? When Situ Luyun saw that Su Yi was a little deflated, he seemed to be very happy in his heart. This brat wanted the supreme benefits of Xinjian Gate, so he had no choice but to be honest. He was not afraid that he would not be obedient. It's not plundering. It's just that there are dangers everywhere in the myriad sword battlefield. I was only helping everyone to take care of their space bags. There are no rules in the myriad sword battlefield, and I did not violate any of the sex rules. Moreover, I did not do it alone. Su Yi said calmly. He did not violate any of the sex rules. Moreover, Situ Muyang was also involved. Situ Luyun frowned. This brat was clearly threatening him. Situ Muyang was also involved, and he really could not find any sect rules that this brat had violated. I heard that you controlled the beast horde in the myriad sword battlefield. Do you know how to control the barbaric beast? Situ Luyun looked seriously at Su Yi. This was very important. If Su Yi really had the means and ability to control the barbaric beasts, then the significance would not be ordinary. From the various information they received, all of them showed that Su Yi did indeed have the means and ability in this aspect. I only know a little about the language of beasts, and the cultivation technique I cultivate seems to be very similar to the aura of the demonic beast. That's why I can get close to some of the barbaric beasts, but I can't say that I can control them. Su Yi's expression remained unchanged. Naturally, he couldn't reveal the fact that he could use the Origin Supreme technique to suppress the barbaric beasts and use the mysterious space to control the barbaric beasts. Is that so? Latest chapter. On _hashtag O Situ Luyun's eyes flickered. She was a little doubtful, but there were indeed many cultivation techniques that were very similar to the aura of the demon clan. The demon race was very powerful. Many powerful ancestors and ancient experts had created many powerful cultivation techniques using the demon race's method. They were extremely similar to the demon race and could even suppress ordinary barbaric demon beasts. For example, the sects of demon subduing in Yuzhou was famous for their ability to suppress barbaric demon beasts, and they stood tall in Yuzhou. Another space appeared at the exit of the battlefield of myriad swords. It's said that you were there as well. Did you discover anything? Also, when the exit of the myriad sword conference opened, there was a heaven and earth spiritual creature undergoing its tribulation. You were the closest to it at that time. Did you discover anything? Situ Luyun continued to ask, looking at Su Yi as if she wanted to see through Su Yi. When that space opened, Situ Muyang and I and many other disciples went in. It was extremely dangerous and we almost died inside. However, we also obtained many spiritual herbs. On the day the exit opened, Situ Muyang and I were chased by a group of direct disciples. Suddenly, there was a flash of lightning and thunder, and there was a strange phenomenon. That was why we took the opportunity to escape. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. Later on, we found out that there was a heaven and earth spiritual creature undergoing its tribulation. Other than that, we didn't discover anything else. Su Yi shook his head and revealed a look of surprise. He didn't reveal anything else. Chapter 564. In any case, there were no experts from the Xinjian Gate present. As long as he insisted that it had nothing to do with him, no one would have any evidence. Situ Luyun's brows furrowed slightly. Su Yi's reply was watertight, and his expression was calm. It was as if he was speaking the truth. What about your profound spirit tree and profound spirit fruit? According to the news I received, the profound spirit tree was uprooted by you. Why do you have nothing to say? Situ Luyun glared at Su Yi. Thinking of the profound spirit tree, his heart ached. The profound spirit tree was a great treasure of the Xinjian Gate. Situ Luyun originally intended to deal with Su Yi after the Myriad Sword Conference ended, but Su Yi's performance during the Myriad Sword Conference was too shocking, so he didn't know how to deal with him. The profound spirit fruit was indeed plucked by me. Sui nodded. He probably couldn't hide it anymore. Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, and the others had all consumed the profound spirit fruit. The experts from the Xinjian Gate would probably be able to tell at a glance. If he didn't admit it, he probably wouldn't be able to hold on, and it would make people suspect something else. Then why did you uproot the profound spirit tree? That's a great treasure. Situ Liuyun's heart was bleeding. What kind of great treasure was that? Although the profound spirit fruit was only useful for origin spirit realm cultivators, the foundation it laid was immeasurable and beneficial for future cultivation. No one said that I can't uproot it. Didn't you say that everything inside depends on one's own ability? Sui said. You're just quibbling. Situ Luyun was helpless. Everything depended on one's own ability, but he didn't ask you to uproot the profound spirit tree. Besides, there's nothing wrong with the profound spirit tree. I just changed the location to plant it. The profound spirit fruit that it bears seems to have better effect. Sui looked at Situ Luyun and said, Changed the location to plant it? Where? Hearing this, Situ Muyang's eyes lit up. He had seen the profound spirit fruit on Situ Muyang's body with his own eyes and was already suspicious. Now that he knew the effects of the profound spirit fruit, he became even more excited. There is a hidden treasure ground within the Myriad Sword battlefield. That place is very mysterious. If Sect Master does not believe me, I can bring Sect Master to look for it, Sui said seriously. Situ Luyun sighed inwardly and went to the Myriad Sword battlefield to search. Now that the Myriad Sword battlefield was closed, how could it be opened so easily? The next time the Myriad Sword battlefield opened would be 5 years later. Su Yi's eyes flickered. He knew that the Myriad Sword battlefield only opened once every 5 years, so he guessed that it was not a place that anyone could enter whenever they wanted to. As for what would happen 5 years later, he would think about it again. Is there no problem with the profound spirit tree? Since Situ Luyun could not casually enter the 10,000 sword battlefield, he had to make sure that the profound spirit tree was safe and sound. It's safe and sound, absolutely safe and sound. That treasure ground is very mysterious, and can allow the profound spirit tree to grow even better. Sui replied confidently. This was something he could guarantee. Based on his estimations, the quality of the profound spirit tree would be even better 15 years later. What about the profound spirit fruits? All of them are with you right now. You can't possibly use them all by yourself, right? Situ Luyun glared at Sui. Right now, he was sure that all of the profound spirit fruits were with Sui. With so many profound spirit fruits in the hands of this lad, it was no wonder that all of the direct disciples were hunting him down. That's right. I can't eat them all by myself. One is enough. I don't know what to do with the rest. Sui said seriously, pretending to be helpless. But upon hearing Sui's words, Situ Liuyun's eyes twitched fiercely. This lad was definitely doing this on purpose. Could it be that his words were not clear enough? One profound spirit fruit is enough. Eating more will not add up to the benefits, but it will be greatly beneficial to the other disciples. Situ Luyun said. This time it should be clear enough. The rest of the profound spirit fruits should be handed over to the other disciples. TW Cool Craftsman. Initials W, post that's right. I gave a few to Situ Muyang, Su Jiahui, Zhang Qing, and a few others. As for the rest, I don't know who to give it to. There are still a dozen outer disciples on the 36th Sword Peak. I'll go back and distribute it to them. I'm sure Elder Su will agree. Sui said seriously. Give it to the outer disciples. Situ Luyun was on the verge of breaking down. Profound spirit fruits. What kind of treasure was that? Giving it to a dozen outer disciples? What kind of waste was that? Elder Su? Based on his understanding of Elder Su's temper, Elder Su would really protect his 36th Sword Peak. Kid, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Situ Luyun finally understood that this kid was doing this on purpose. He clearly did not want to hand over the rest of the profound spirit fruit. This disciple doesn't dare. How about sect master enlighten me? Sui said. How could he not understand that Situ Luyun wanted him to hand over the rest of the profound spirit fruits? Take out the rest of the profound spirit fruit. I will convince those elders to hand over the supreme benefits of the Xinjian Gate to you. Situ Luyun said to Sui. Everything in the battlefield of 10,000 swords is based on one's own ability. Everything is based on one's own fate. Sect Master, you won't force me, right? Sui looked at Situ Luyun and asked. Of course. Situ Luyun nodded. Everything obtained in the battlefield of 10,000 swords naturally belonged to him. If Sect Master has no other instructions, this disciple will take his leave first. If Sect Master doesn't want to give me the so-called supreme benefits, then this disciple doesn't need them. Sui bowed slightly and turned to leave. Based on Suyi's current understanding of Situ Luyun, she wanted him to hand over all of his mystical spirit fruits in exchange for the so-called supreme benefits of the Divine Sword sect. Even if he handed over all of his mystical spirit fruits, it would still be difficult for him to obtain them. If he did not obtain the supreme benefits, and even lost the profound spirit fruits, that would be a huge loss. Situ Luyun was a little stunned. Everything seemed to be a little different from what he had imagined. If it were any other disciple, they would have taken the initiative to hand over the profound spirit fruit. But this kid before him was completely out of his expectations. Moreover, shouldn't this kid be obedient by now? Why did everything seem to be out of his control? Kid, wait. Seeing that Sui had really turned to leave, Situ Luyun had no choice but to call out to Sui. If Sect Master really wants this disciple to hand over all the profound spirit fruits, this disciple will have no choice but to comply. Sui stopped and turned back to Situ Luyun with a serious expression. This was the Xinjian Gate. Facing the Sect Master of the Xinjian Gate, if he really wanted to hand over all the profound spirit fruits, there was no way he could resist. Kid, don't try to provoke me with words. Situ Luyun rolled his eyes at Sui, his eyes twitching a little. He finally understood why those inner sect disciples and direct disciples hated this brat so much that their teeth itched. Now, he really wanted to kick this brat a few times. Chapter 565. Suyi's eyes darted around, and a mocking smile hung on his face as he said, I heard that disciples of the sect can exchange things that they don't need at the hidden sword peak for things that they need. I wonder if the mystical spiritual fruit can be exchanged for as well. What do you want to exchange for? Situ Luyun finally understood. This brat already had a plan in his heart. He would not hand over the mystical spiritual fruit for nothing. This, Sui pondered for a moment. He really could not figure it out. Although the mystical spiritual fruit was a treasure that was priceless to many people, it was not at the level of a heavenly treasure. Looking at Suyi's expression, Situ Luyun asked in annoyance, How many mystical spiritual fruits do you have on you now? A total of 41. I still have 34 on me now. Sui said. He had a total of 51 mystical spiritual fruits, but Sui did not intend to hand them all over. A treasure like the mystical spiritual fruit was extremely useful to an essence spirit stage practitioner. If he kept a few on him, they might be of great use in the future. Man City's Su family and Tian Yao School would have people who could use them when the time came. A total of 41. Chapter 566. Situ Luyun said. Her heart was filled with doubts. This guy wants so many points. Could it be that he wants to exchange for some treasure? 83,000 points, Sui muttered. His eyes narrowed slightly. He then continued to ask Situ Luyun, I wonder if the sect has the profound soaring dragon pill? What do you want the profound soaring dragon pill for? Situ Luyun was slightly stunned. The profound soaring dragon pill was a low-tier yellow-grade elixir. Moreover, the mysterious Yuan soaring dragon pill was not an ordinary pill. It was a healing pill that was extremely difficult to refine, and its effects were astonishing. It was rumored that as long as one had a single breath left, the mysterious Yuan soaring dragon pill could be saved. Its price was much higher than the same level of Huang-grade initial-tier medicinal pills. To be honest, I have a close relative who was severely injured by an expert. I need a profound soaring dragon pill. Su Yi's eyes narrowed. Although he had the blood jade spirit ginseng that had successfully passed the cardinal tribulation to help his grandfather heal, Su Yi wasn't too relieved. His grandfather's injuries couldn't be allowed to have any accident. If he had a profound soaring dragon pill, he would be more confident. Su Yi knew a little about the profound soaring dragon pill. It was a low-tier yellow-grade elixir for healing injuries. However, a low-tier yellow-grade elixir would be priceless. Therefore, Su Yi planned to exchange everything he had for points. Finally, he would exchange for a profound soaring dragon pill. How is your close relative now? What's the cultivation level of the person who attacked him? Situ Luyun asked. No wonder this kid wanted to exchange everything for points. My close relative might not be able to hold on for more than a few years. The person who attacked him is at least at the later stage of the Origin Void Realm. He might even have stepped into the Origin Emperor Realm. Su Yi's eyes glowed red as he clenched his fists. If it wasn't for him, his grandfather wouldn't have been injured by Wang Chuanda. In the end, his grandfather couldn't heal himself and his injuries worsened. If anything happened to his grandfather, how could he forgive himself? Is that so? Situ Luyun's expression didn't reveal anything. She had asked what cultivation level the one who had attacked her had. She wanted to understand the cultivation level of Su Yi's relative and also understand this fellow in front of her. You exchanged everything you have just to exchange for a profound soaring dragon pellet? Tu Luyun stared fixedly at Su Yi. Since you know about the profound origin soaring dragon pill, you should know that its price is extraordinary. If these points aren't enough, I still have quite a few spirit medicines and medicinal pills that I can exchange for them. If they aren't enough, I'll think of something else. Su Yi's eyes were filled with joy and determination. It seemed that the Xinjian Gate really did have the Xianyuan soaring dragon elixir. If he could exchange for it, then his grandfather's injuries would be greatly improved. Su Yi did not hesitate. He could take out the spiritual herbs and pills in the mysterious space to exchange, as long as he could obtain the profound essence soaring dragon pill. It's a pity. The Xinjian Gate used to have the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill. However, there is no profound Yuan soaring dragon pill to exchange for now. Situ Luyun said. What? How could this be? Su Yi's heart trembled violently. It was as if he had suddenly fallen from a high place. The Xinjian Gate did not have the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill to exchange for. The profound Yuan soaring dragon pill is a healing pill. It's extremely difficult to refine. There was still one a few days ago. However, do you know who exchanged for it? Situ Luyun asked Su Yi. Su Yi shook his head. There was still one a few days ago. How could it be so unlucky? The last profound Yuan soaring dragon pill was exchanged by Elder by 3 days ago. It was given to Yunling Feng, whom you defeated, to heal his injuries. Situ Luyun looked at Su Yi and said, Brat, don't you know how heavy your attack on Yunling Feng was? Yunling Feng, Su Yi's gaze trembled. The last profound Yuan soaring dragon pill had actually been exchanged for by Elder by Mingshan and given to Yunling Feng. If he had known earlier, he definitely would not have injured Yunling Feng. Although the Xinjian Gate did not exchange for the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill, at least not in a short period of time, with the Xinjian Gate's resources, refining one profound Yuan soaring dragon pill isn't too big of a problem. Situ Luyun looked at Su Yi and said, Hearing Situluyun's words, Sui felt as if he had seen the sun in the darkness. However, exchanging for the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill requires at least 11,000 points. Even if you can exchange for it now, you currently only have 83,000 points. You're still lacking 27,000 points. Situluyun looked at Sui and continued. Disciple still has a lot of spirit herbs and pills that can be taken out to exchange. If it's not enough, Disciple will think of another way. As long as I can obtain the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill as soon as possible, it will be fine. Sui once again saw hope and didn't want to miss it. Do you think that you can refine a low-tier yellow rank pill just because you want to? Moreover, it's the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill. Let's not talk about how difficult it is to find the ingredients to refine the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill. You also know the temper of those alchemists. If they are in a bad mood, begging them won't work. Situluyun looked at Sui and said helplessly, the Xinjian Gate does have some alchemists, but you don't have enough alchemists to refine low-tier yellow-rank pills. Those alchemists might not necessarily give me face. This, Sui was a bit speechless. He believed in Situluyun on this point. Any alchemist in this world had a transcendent status and would be treated as an honored guest by various large factions. Those alchemists that could refine yellow-rank pills were all extremely powerful. Although Situluyun was the sect master of the Xinjian Gate, she might not be given too much face. There is an alchemist in the sect. He has a disciple that he dotes on greatly. This time, he also entered the myriad sword battlefield, but unfortunately, he did not enter the final battle. If you are willing to give the supreme opportunity you obtained from winning the championship to his disciple in exchange for a profound Yuan soaring dragon pill, I believe that alchemist will definitely be very willing. Situluyun stared at Sui seriously and asked, but are you willing to answer me after you have thought it through? I am willing. Without much hesitation, Sui nodded. Although the supreme opportunity of the Xinjian Gate was tempting, compared to giving his grandfather a chance to recover, Sui would not hesitate to choose the latter. He possessed the primordial chaos supreme technique and the heavenly Fei ancient scripture. Even if he lacked this unknown supreme opportunity, he could still advance. Even without the supreme benefit of the Xinjian Gate, Sui was confident that he would one day become an expert. His foundation and reliance had always been the primordial chaos supreme technique. But if he lacked the profound Yuan soaring dragon pill and caused his grandfather to suffer an accident, Sui knew that he would never be able to forgive himself. He could search for more opportunities and benefits in the future, but he only had one grandfather. Ever since he was young, only his grandfather had doted on him. He was his closest kin and was more important than anything else. Hearing Sui's words, Situluyun looked at Sui with a deep light in her eyes, as if she wanted to see through Sui. After a long while, Situluyun opened her mouth and said to Sui, "Kid, you have really surprised me." As her voice faded, Situluyun reached into her chest, and a spatial bag appeared in her hand. With a flash of light, she threw a small medicine box to Sui and said, "Take it." Sui was surprised. He received the medicine box and carefully opened it with some doubt. Walala, when the medicine box was opened, a dazzling light burst out from the gap. A rich medicinal fragrance assailed his nostrils. Accompanied by a huge energy impact, it burst open the gap. Inside the medicine box, there was a thumb-sized pill that was suffused with a green brilliance. The light was so dazzling that Sui could not look at it directly. There was a faint dragon's roar echoing. The astonishing energy made Sui's heart tremble. Sui was shocked. Under the energy fluctuation, it seemed that the pill was about to leave the medicine box. He immediately closed the medicine box. This pill was definitely a treasure. This is the profound soaring dragon pill that you wanted. Situluyun's voice landed in Sui's ears. Didn't you say that there was no more profound soaring dragon pill? Su Yi's eyes trembled. This was actually the profound soaring dragon pill. It was priceless and was currently in his hand. There is no more Xinjian Gate, but this is my private possession. It can be considered a coincidence. Keep it. There is no need for you to exchange for the supreme benefit. Situ Luyun said to Su Yi indifferently. Sect Master, this. Su Yi was rather surprised and even more excited. With this profound essence soaring dragon elixir, his grandfather's recovery from his injuries would be even more assured. Situ Luyun stared at Su Yi and said, Don't be happy too early. Although there is no need for you to exchange for the supreme benefits, the mysterious spiritual fruit and all of your points will be automatically deducted. Later, send the mysterious spiritual fruit to the hidden sword peak. As for the remaining points, you can slowly return them to me in the future. Thank you, Sect Master. Su Yi did not stand on ceremony, and kept the profound soaring dragon pill. There was no way for him to stand on ceremony. He urgently needed this profound soaring dragon pill. No need to thank me. Do you know about the Sacred Martial Assembly? Situ Luyun asked. I just found out a little. Su Yi's eyes moved. He had just found out a little about the Sacred Martial Assembly from Situ Muyang not long ago. There are still 3 months to the Sacred Martial Assembly. This time, the outstanding young disciples of the Myriad Sword Assembly will all participate. At that time, if you don't enter the top 10, no, if you don't enter the top 5, you will pay me back double the amount of this profound soaring dragon pill. Situ Luyun stared at Su Yi and said, I have to participate in the Sacred Martial Assembly? Su Yi's heart suddenly trembled. The people of the Sacred Martial Assembly would also participate in the Sacred Martial Assembly. If he went, the fact that he was still alive would immediately be exposed. At that time, he would have no choice but to face the people of the Sacred Martial Assembly. Of course, you have to participate. 5 days later, someone will pick you up. Whether or not you can obtain the supreme benefits will depend on your own luck. Situ Luyun looked at Su Yi and waved his hand, saying, Go back and prepare. Remember to send the mysterious spiritual fruit to the hidden sword peak. Chapter 567. Looking at Su Yi's back, Situ Luyun's eyes flickered. This brat is indeed not ordinary. A silhouette walked out of the study room. It was the right protector. What do you think? Situ Luyun smiled. True and false, true and false. He is cunning and treacherous, but he is loyal to his friends. To be honest, I have never met such a person in my life. I cannot see through him. The right protector smiled. He has 4 elements, but he was able to reach the 7th floor of the Tower of Ascension. I have never seen such a person before. Situ Luyun said. It seems like you have made a decision. The right protector looked at Situ Luyun and said, Let's go there together in 5 days. At that time, those people will have nothing to say. What they want is merely an opportunity. If that brat truly has such good fortune and is able to obtain such supreme benefits, it would be the will of the heavens. Situ Luyun said. The right protector's eyes flickered. Then, he raised his eyes and said, Does the leader believe in that brat? Even though he is cunning and treacherous, he is loyal to his friends. I am afraid that one day, the Xinjian Gate will be a small pond to him. He is not a fish in a pond. Situ Luyun stood in front of the table and looked at the word sword that he had written. But the leader still wants that brat to go there. If that brat really obtains that supreme benefit, then... The right protector's eyes flickered. That was the supreme benefit of the Xinjian Gate. If it fell into the hands of someone who could not be controlled by the Xinjian Gate, it would not be a good thing for the Xinjian Gate. Whether or not he can obtain it depends on his luck. After all, it has been so many years and no one has succeeded. Maybe this time, he will return without any success. Situ Luyun raised his eyes. Light flickered in his eyes and he said, Even if that brat really has that kind of luck, I am willing to take a gamble. The movements there are getting bigger and bigger. Maybe this time, it will really fall into someone's hands. Right, Protector said. His eyes flickered with radiance, and for some reason, his heart trembled. He understood clearly what this represented. The disciples of this generation are extraordinary. If those supreme benefits appear and can complement each other, my Xinjian gate might really have a chance to prosper. Sidu Luyun clenched his fists slightly, and light surged in his eyes. Su Yi returned to the 36th Sword Peak with joy and excitement in his heart. He had already obtained the profound Soaring Dragon Elixir and the Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng that had successfully passed the tribulation. His grandfather's injuries were more likely to be healed. In the courtyard, after making sure that no one was around, Su Yi summoned the mysterious space. The Blood Jade Spirit Ginseng was still recuperating in the mysterious space. The spiritual herbs and medicinal herbs in the mysterious space were very lush. After plucking the 34 mystical spiritual fruits, Su Yi immediately exited the mysterious space. He wanted to head to the hidden sword peak as quickly as possible. Su Yi did not have so many special items on him to store so many mystical spiritual fruit. He could only deliver them to the Xinjian gate at the hidden sword peak as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the efficacy of the mystical spiritual fruits would be reduced. The Gale Golden Eagle had been on the 36th sword peak. Su Yi found Tan Chao and asked about the location of the hidden sword peak. After that, he summoned the Gale Golden Eagle and headed there directly. The hidden sword peak had always been the place where the Xinjian gate collected martial techniques, sword techniques, and treasured swords. Only disciples who met the requirements could set foot there. Su Yi was going to the hidden sword peak to deliver the mystical spiritual fruits, so he naturally had the qualifications. On the back of the Gale Golden Eagle, Su Yi saw a large number of ancient buildings from afar. There were many pavilions and people coming and going. In a small square, there were many savage beasts lying on the ground. One after another, disciples of the Xinjian gate landed on their beast mounts. Su Yi landed on the back of the Gale Golden Eagle. The surrounding disciples looked at him and were secretly moved. It's Su Yi. Is he here to look for martial techniques? Some disciples were discussing with shock in their eyes. The battle on the spiritual sword peak 3 days ago still left them with a lingering fear. Martial Uncle Su Yi, please follow me. A protector is already waiting for you. A young woman in her late 20s came to Su Yi's side. She was dressed in a tight robe and looked valiant. Her face was delicate and pretty. You are? Su Yi was surprised. He did not seem to know this woman. According to seniority, I should call you Martial Uncle. A protector told me that Martial Uncle is coming and asked me to wait here to bring Martial Uncle over. The woman with the surname Qin smiled faintly as she sized Su Yi up in a generous manner. Su Yi's name had already spread throughout the Xinjian gate. She was also present at the Myriad Sword Conference 3 days ago. She knew that this young man in front of her was actually a terrifying master. If you don't dare, then I'll have to trouble you. Su Yi nodded helplessly. He did not expect Elder Su's seniority in the Xinjian gate to be so high. It seemed that sect leader Sidu Luyun had already made arrangements to inform the hidden sword peak that he was coming. It was related to the 34 mystical spiritual fruits, so he arranged for disciples to wait here for him. You're welcome. The woman with the surname Qin was not arrogant. She immediately brought Su Yi to a huge ancient building. In the side hall, a protector was already waiting. What surprised Su Yi was that this protector was not unfamiliar. It was Zhang Qing's master, Protector Ho Changming. Greetings, Protector Ho. Su Yi bowed. He had always had a good impression of Protector Ho. I can't accept such a bow. Did you bring the mystical spiritual fruits? Protector Ho Changming smiled bitterly. Su Yi's seniority was too high. How could he accept such a vow? Sui was also very helpless. He could not directly announce that he had not become Elder Su's disciple. He then took out a space bag and handed it to Protector Ho Changming. All the mystical spiritual fruits were inside. Protector Ho Changming had already received news that Sui was coming to deliver the 34 mystical spiritual fruit. He had been looking forward to it. After receiving the space bag from Sui, Protector Ho Changming immediately peeked inside. A mystical spiritual fruit appeared in his hand. Looking at the sparkling and translucent mystical spiritual fruit, Protector Ho Changming's expression changed. He could not help but whisper in shock, "Unbelievable, truly unbelievable." The woman with the surname Qin also could not help but look at the mystical spiritual fruit. She did not have the strength or opportunity to obtain such a treasure 5 years ago. "There's nothing else. I will arrange the rest. There are many martial skills, cultivation methods, and hidden swords on the Hidden Sword Peak. You can take a look around. If you are not familiar with them, you can ask Qinzhen to show you around." Protector Ho Changming waved his hand. His gaze was fixed on the mystical spiritual fruit in his hand. Chapter 568. Sui nodded and turned to leave. Since the mystical spiritual fruit had been delivered, what happened next had nothing to do with him. "Senior Granduncle, do you need me to bring you around and familiarize you with the Hidden Sword Peak?" The Qin lady recovered her senses and followed behind Sui. "That's what I was thinking. I'll have to trouble you then." Sui nodded. He wanted to familiarize himself with the Hidden Sword Peak so that he could be more familiar with it in the future. Under the Qin lady's guidance, Sui became more familiar with the Hidden Sword Peak. The entire Hidden Sword Peak was divided into several areas, of which the 3 most important areas were martial techniques, medicinal herbs and elixirs, as well as various weapons with swords as the main weapon. If one wanted to obtain these, they would have to exchange points for them. The higher the level of the elixir, martial technique or sword, the higher the amount of points required. Sui could only look around. All his points had already been exchanged for the profound soaring dragon elixir, and he was still lacking quite a bit of point. His badge was still the basic 5 points, and even if he took a fancy to something, he did not have any points to exchange for it. Latest chapter. Upper Ni. After a leisurely stroll, it was already dusk when Sui left the Hidden Sword Peak. The sun set in the west and the glow of the sunset covered the mountain peak. As the last of the sunset disappeared into the western horizon, Sui returned to the 36th Sword Peak. Cultivators did not need to sleep. When one reached the Essence Spirit Realm, 2 hours of breathing and recuperating was equivalent to dozens of hours of sleep. There were still 5 days before he could obtain the legendary benefits of the Shunjian Gate. Although Sui was somewhat looking forward to it, Sui did not want to waste these 5 days. He planned to completely recover from his injuries and continue practicing the basics of the sword. 36 Sword Peak, Back Mountain. The sky was hazy and the moonlight was scattered. Tonight, the moon was bright and the stars were dim. A few stars were faintly discernible in the horizon. "Grandfather, I will return as soon as possible. Your injuries will definitely be healed." Sui looked at the bright moon in the horizon. His eyes seemed to sparkle as they gently blinked. "I wonder where my parents in this world are right now. Perhaps it was a night like this that caused one's thoughts to fluctuate." At this moment, Sui's heart, which was usually hidden, was stirred. His grandfather's injury, and strictly speaking, his father and mother, who were only a distant memory, were all floating in the depths of Sui's heart. Impatience, sadness, and longing were all rippling, touching the softest part of Sui's heart. "Let's continue practicing." After a long time, Sui's eyes twitched slightly as he collected all his thoughts. Strength was still the most important thing. He had to become a true expert as soon as possible. Swish, swish, Su Yi continued to practice the basics of the sword. Although it was simple and boring, Su Yi knew very well that what he lacked was precisely this kind of simple and boring basics, which would be of great benefit to him. Time slowly passed. Su Yi had been staying at the back of the mountain for the past few days. When he was exhausted, he would breathe and adjust his breathing for a while before continuing to practice. In the end, Su Yi used the broken sword on his back to practice. The heavy sword, which weighed more than 1,000 pounds, was even more strenuous. Su Yi had been persevering. This was also a kind of training. Time was like quicksand in one's hand, quietly passing by. In Xinjian Gate, the shock caused by the myriad sword conference had finally calmed down a little. In the quiet room, there was an energy fluctuation, and a mighty aura slowly rippled. On the bed, Yun Lingfeng sat cross-legged, his face slightly pale. Exhaling a long breath from his stomach, Yun Lingfeng's tightly shut eyes opened. There was a flicker in his eyes, and the aura on his body trembled violently, shaking the room. As expected of the profound soaring dragon pill, the effect is really not bad. In the room, Elder Bai Mingshan's eyes lit up as he looked at his disciple with joy in his eyes. Seeing that his disciple was fine, and even had a slight improvement in his aura, Elder Bai Mingshan's tensed heart completely relaxed. Although he had paid a great price to obtain the profound soaring dragon pill, it was definitely worth it. "I've disappointed you, Master," Yun Lingfeng said, his face twitching. Until now, Yun Lingfeng was still unwilling to believe that he had lost so miserably. Originally, he thought that after revealing his identity as a soul controller, coupled with his extraordinary soul power, he would be able to soar to the sky. Becoming the champion of the Myriad Sword Conference and obtaining the supreme benefits was just the beginning. From then on, even in the entire middle ground, he would be able to lead the heroes of his generation. However, Yun Lingfeng had never thought that he would lose so miserably in the end. "It's not your fault. That kid is just too unbelievable." Elder Bai Mingshan's expression was indifferent, and his eyes were cold. Then, light flickered in his eyes as he said to Yun Lingfeng, "But this defeat is not the end. On the contrary, this is still our chance. Although that kid has become the champion, the final benefits may not fall on him." "Master, you're saying that we still have a chance to obtain the supreme benefits?" Hearing this, Yun Lingfeng's eyes lit up as he stared at Bai Mingshan. "Of course. That kid's background is unknown, and he wants to obtain the supreme benefits from the Xinjian Gate. Even with Suruga's protection, he will not get what he wants. I've already found a few elders to oppose it, and in the end, the gate master had to agree. This time, it will not be one person going in, but 18, Elder Bai Mingshan said with a cold look in his eyes. 18. Yun Lingfeng's eyes flickered as he said, 18 people. I wonder who will have the opportunity to obtain the supreme benefits? Indeed. 18 people. Who can obtain the supreme benefits will depend on their own luck, Elder Bai Mingshan said with a cold smile. Bai Mingshan spoke while a wisp of a cold smile flashed on the corners of his mouth. He said, however, it isn't impossible. With that, a small jade bottle appeared in Elder Bai Mingshan's hand, and he placed it in Yun Lingfeng's hand. Master, what's this? Yun Lingfeng was surprised and wanted to open the jade bottle. Don't open it. There's a drop of blood catalyst inside. Once you're inside, use this blood catalyst as a catalyst, and you'll have at least a 90% chance of obtaining the supreme benefits. Elder Bai Mingshan sneered. Master, where did this come from? Is it really useful? Yun Lingfeng was pleasantly surprised. A 90% chance of obtaining the supreme benefits meant that victory was already in his hand. There's no need to ask. Anyway, this is your last chance. As long as you can obtain the supreme benefits, everything will still be yours. Elder Bai Mingshan said in a deep voice. Thank you, Master. Yun Lingfeng bowed emotionally. He was extremely happy, and a cold look surged in his eyes. As long as he obtained the supreme benefits, he would be able to regain everything he had lost. He would be able to return the humiliation that Sui had given him tenfold. Chapter 569. 5 days passed very quickly. In these 5 days, Sui stayed at the back of the 36th Sword Peak, using the broken sword to practice the basics of the sword. In these 5 days, Sui's injuries were completely healed. Early in the morning, the mountains had just woken up. The morning clouds came out of the mountains and the morning glow poured down on the mountains. Huff! Sui stopped his breathing and retracted his hand seals. He spat out a mouthful of turbid qi from his dantian, and the qi on his body shook. The surrounding sand and stones were swept up, and his robes fluttered. His tightly shut eyes opened, and a scarlet light flashed like lightning. It disappeared in a flash, and then returned to its tenacity and depth. Sui looked at the morning sun, his eyes filled with anticipation, and muttered, "It should be today." A moment later, on the 36th Sword Peak, a brute demon beast mount descended. Only Situ Muyang dared to ride a brute demon beast mount directly. "Boss Sui, we should set off." Situ Muyang's eyes were filled with anticipation, and he was extremely excited. Sui's feet moved, and he jumped onto the brute demon beast mount and asked, "Where are we going now?" "To the Divine Sword Valley, the supreme benefits are there," Situ Muyang told Sui. After that, from Situ Muyang's mouth, Sui finally understood what the so-called supreme benefits of the Xinjian Gate were. Xinjian Gate has been standing in the central region for a long time. It is said that our Xinjian Gate's ancestor relied on one man and one sword to dominate the continent, and finally created the Xinjian Gate. After that, the ancestor disappeared, and I'm afraid that he had already passed away. However, his treasured sword had always been in the Divine Sword Valley, and he had left behind the sect rules. All the experts above the elder level, when they died of old age, had to go to the Divine Sword Valley to pass away. Thus, the experts of the Xinjian Gate would all die in the Divine Sword Valley. Sui only knew about all this from Situ Muyang. The Divine Sword Valley buried all the experts and treasured swords of the Xinjian Gate. It was also a restricted area in Xinjian Gate. Every once in a while, the Divine Sword Valley would open. This time, it just so happened to be right after the Myriad Sword Conference. It was said that every time the Divine Sword Valley opened, the Xinjian Gate would arrange for a disciple to enter to see if he could obtain the treasured sword left behind by the Xinjian Gate's ancestor. It was rumored that the Patriarch of Xinjian Gate had left all his inheritance in the sword. Whoever could get the sword would not only get a divine sword, but also the inheritance of the Patriarch of Xinjian Gate. That was a great benefit. It turns out that the supreme benefit is everything left behind by the Patriarch of Xinjian Gate. Sui's heart was secretly moved. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the ancestor of the Divine Sword sect, who had established it until now, was. If he could obtain his inheritance, he would be able to dominate the entire continent in the future. All these years, every time the Xinjian Gate sent people into the Divine Sword Valley, they wanted to obtain the inheritance left behind by the Patriarch, but no one succeeded. At most, they could only obtain some of the inheritance left behind by the other experts of the Xinjian Gate. Situ Muyang continued, he knew a lot of things. Could it be that there's something special about the Divine Sword Valley? Sui was suspicious. There were a lot of experts in the Xinjian Gate. How could no one obtain the inheritance left behind by the Xinjian Gate's ancestor? This was not normal. Situ Muyang looked at Sui and smiled, then said with shock in his eyes, Divine Sword Valley is very mysterious because once you enter, you will not be able to come out and will devour everything. It is a dangerous place, and only those experts who have exhausted their oil lamps will enter. and only every time there is a commotion in the Divine Sword Valley will people be allowed to enter. In this short period of time, the Divine Sword Valley is rather safe, but this kind of safety is only for cultivators below the Yuanjun stage. The higher the cultivation, the more dangerous it will be to enter. Is it that strange? Su Yi raised his eyebrows. No wonder the experts of the Xinjian Gate did not obtain this supreme benefit after so long. It turned out that the Divine Sword Valley was truly strange. In short, the Divine Sword Valley was not something that could be entered just because one wanted to. It needed to be at a specific time to be relatively safe. Furthermore, this kind of safety was only for cultivators below the Yuanjun stage. The higher the cultivation level of the ranker, the greater the danger. Every time the Divine Sword Valley opens, only one disciple will be arranged to enter. But this time, it is said that the commotion in the Divine Sword Valley is quite big, so this time, 18 disciples will be arranged to enter the Divine Sword Valley. Whoever gets the supreme benefit in the end will depend on their own luck and fortune, or as usual, no one will be able to obtain it. K update, latest _Y update on CA $4 K Sidhu Muyang said, his eyes filled with anticipation and excitement, but he was also very clear that he might not be able to obtain it, and would need to rely on his own luck and fortune. 18. F***CK, hearing that, Su Yi's eyes twitched. Didn't they say that only the champion of the Myriad Sword Conference would get the supreme benefit? So that supreme benefit might not be obtained. Most importantly, the opportunity that originally belonged to him seemed to have suddenly increased to 18 people. I've been tricked, old fox, secretly curling his lips. Su Yi was sure that he had been tricked by sect leader Sidhu Luyun. I'm afraid that the old fox has already arranged for 18 people to enter the Divine Sword Valley, but he still cheated me of so many mystical spirit fruits. But thinking about the profound essence soaring dragon pill on him, Su Yi felt helpless. We're here. On the back of the flying barbaric demon beast, Sidhu Muyang spoke. Su Yi followed his gaze, and a vast valley appeared below. The surrounding mountains were empty and silent. The morning sun hung in the sky, and the spots of light were like chess pieces. The silent valley was originally cold and desolate, as if it was deserted. At this moment, there were many barbaric demon beast mounts and figures below. Appearing above the valley, Su Yi felt a mysterious aura spreading over, causing his heart to tremble for no reason. Following that, the aura disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. Below, many figures raised their eyes, their gazes like lightning shooting over. Su Yi saw many familiar figures: Mu Yao, Sakura Asaka, Gong Qi, Yun Lingfeng, Ryugan River, O Luo, Gu Qinyu, Nanli Ran, Jiang Shiwen, Qin Fang, Zhang Lingyun, Ouyang Ran, Xia Chongqing, Yu Shanhe and the others. Su Yi and Sidhu Muyang dismounted from their flying barbaric demon beast mounts and swept their gazes across. There were also sect leaders Sidhu Luyun, Bai Mingshan, Elder Yu Chongqing and a few other elders. There were also two other figures that surprised Su Yi. The black-robed Sword 11 was also among them. There was also a young man in a brocade robe who had an extraordinary temperament and was about the same age, causing Su Yi to pay more attention to him. That guy is called Si Shuyuan. It is said that his ranking in the Sword Pagoda is not low, and he is also an alchemist. However, when he came out of the Myriad Sword battlefield, he did not have enough sword grain stones. Ha 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 ha. Sidhu Muyang felt Su Yi's gaze and immediately whispered to Su Yi, and could not help but laugh. Chapter 570. Alchemist. Hearing this, Su Yi couldn't help but take a few more glances at Si Shuyuan. He had heard from sect master Sidhu Luyun that a disciple of an elder who was an alchemist had been eliminated early in the Myriad Sword battlefield because of a lack of sword vein stones. He reckoned that it might be Si Shuyuan. Whoosh whoosh, as Su-yi and Situ Muyang dismounted from their barbarian beast mounts, the surrounding gazes shot over with shock. Some nodded their heads in acknowledgement, while others had ripples in their eyes. Gong Qi looked at Su-yi, rolled her eyes, and pouted her red lips. Mu Yao also glanced at Su-yi. On the other hand, Ryugan River, O Luo, Gu Chenyu, Ouyang Ran and the others looked at Su-yi and nodded their heads in acknowledgement. Only one gloomy and cold gaze looked over. Su-yi followed the gaze and saw that it belonged to Yunling Feng. After a few days, although Yunling Feng's face was still rather pale, he didn't seem to be in too much danger. This caused Su-yi to be secretly shocked. It seemed that the profound soaring dragon pill was indeed a treasure. Yunling Feng's serious injuries had actually recovered to such an extent in just 7 or 8 days. Greetings, Sect Master, greetings, elders. Too lazy to pay attention to Yunling Feng, Su-yi stepped forward and bowed to Situ Luyun, Yu Chongqing, and the other elders. As for Elder Bai Mingshan, Su-yi also pretended not to pay much attention to him. Looking at Su-yi, Elder Yu Chongqing and the others nodded their heads with a smile. They didn't act arrogantly, but there was a hint of regret in their eyes that they didn't take in such a disciple. Is everyone here? Then let's get ready. Situ Luyun said. Boom. Before Situ Luyun finished speaking, the valley in front of them suddenly trembled. The void rumbled as light shot out of nowhere and soared into the sky. The strange thing was that the void above the valley suddenly began to darken. Everything only lasted for an instant before everything calmed down again. What a terrifying aura, however! It was at this moment that an invisible and terrifying aura filled the air, causing the hearts of the younger generation disciples to tremble for no reason. Even their souls were trembling. The elders and sect leaders Situ Luyun focused their gazes and stared at the valley. They frowned slightly. After that, Situ Luyun's expression congealed a little. His gaze swept across the group of disciples in front of the valley, and said, In a while, the elders will work together to open the Divine Sword Valley. In the past, the exit that was opened could only allow one person to enter, but this time, there are some changes in the Divine Sword Valley. I reckon that all of you will be able to enter. However, you must be careful. You only have 24 hours. After 24 hours, you must return to the exit via the original route. Once the exit was completely closed, he would be buried inside. Inside the Divine Sword Valley, whether or not you can reap any benefits will depend on your own fortune. Although these 24 hours are safe, it is only relative. Everything in the Divine Sword Valley is very mysterious, and there are many unknown dangers. You must be careful, do you understand? Understood. All the disciples nodded their heads in response, their eyes filled with anticipation and excitement. This time, everyone had the chance to obtain the supreme benefit. Everyone knew that once they obtained the inheritance left behind by the patriarch of the Shenzhen Gate, they would truly soar into the heavens. The elders swept their gazes across, looked at each other, and gestured with their gazes. Swish, swish, a total of 5 elders immediately soared into the sky. 5 silhouettes soared into the air from 5 different directions. They stood in midair and radiated with the radiance of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth respectively. 5 vigorous and vast auras pervaded the air. The 5 elders condensed their hand seals, their auras surged, the light was as dazzling as the stars falling. The astonishing aura surged, causing the entire valley's space to freeze, causing all the disciples' hearts to palpitate, as though there was a huge rock pressing down on their chests, making it difficult for them to breathe. Chi 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 in the hands of the 5 elders, the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth fluctuated. Each of them shot out an energy pillar and landed in 5 different directions of the valley. Boom! When the 5 elemental energy pillars in the hands of the 5 elders landed, the entire valley seemed to have come to life. The sky was dark for no reason, but the surroundings of the valley were emitting a dazzling light. The mysterious aura was vast, and the earth shook. This kind of aura caused one's heart to palpitate. It was as though a demon god had appeared in the divine sword valley. It shook one's soul. Su-yi raised his eyebrows, and once again felt the mysterious and terrifying aura. This feeling did not come from Su-yi's sharp soul force, as though the terrifying and mysterious aura could not be sensed by the soul force. Instead, it was the primeval supreme technique on Su-yi's body that sensed it, but the aura disappeared in a flash. Chi! When the light rays shot out from the surroundings of the valley, Situ Luyun waved his sleeves and leaped into the air above the valley. As the hand seals condensed, Situ Luyun's body shone brightly. In the end, there was an energy light that shot out and appeared in the valley. Rumble! When the light rays shot out, the valley's void rumbled. A void door tore through space and revealed itself. The light rays were dazzling, and the aura was vast. The space door was filled with an ancient aura, and it emitted a sonorous sound. The exit has already been opened. It will last for at most 24 hours. Quickly enter, and remember to return on time. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Situ Luyun's voice sounded in everyone's ears. Whoosh whoosh, as Situ Luyun's voice fell, the figures in front of the valley were already prepared. They immediately flew out and entered the open space door. Let's go. Don't let anyone beat us to it, Situ Muyang said to Su-yi. The energy under his feet moved, and he followed behind. Su-yi did not hesitate and followed closely behind. However, he secretly circulated the energy in his body. After feeling the mysterious and terrifying aura, Su-yi reckoned that the Divine Sword Valley was not a good place. He had to be careful. Inside the space door, the light rays were dazzling, and it was filled with a vast and ancient aura. The space around the door rippled. In a flash, one figure after another walked out. A door separated them, but it was as if they were two different worlds. One figure after another walked out and looked at everything that appeared in front of them. They were all secretly surprised. The entire space was dark. The ground was dry and the mountains were connected. Not a single blade of grass grew. There was a deathly stillness everywhere. Above his head, it was vast and dusky, as if a dark sky had enveloped him. The entire space was indescribably strange. There was not even a single sound coming out. It was so quiet that one could hear their own heartbeat. Part 2 of the new chapter / It was as if time had lost its meaning in this place. The 18 young figures landed on the ground. The first thing they did was to size up their surroundings. Chapter 571. Su-yi's gaze was solemn. In the mountain range in front of him, there was a huge mountain in the distance that was particularly eye-catching, grand and majestic. That mountain peak was like dozens of mountain peaks combined together, appearing exceptionally grand and majestic. From the top of that mountain peak, there was a faint mysterious aura that pervaded the air. Even though it was a distance away, it still made Su-yi feel uneasy. This aura was exactly the same as the terrifying aura that Su-yi had felt twice outside. Swoosh swoosh, very quickly, Yun Lingfeng, Jiang Shiwen, Qin Fang and many other disciples shot out Yuan Qi from the soles of their feet, flying forward. Mu Yao, Sakura Asaka and Gong Qi also left, as if they did not want to fall behind. The ancestor left it on that mountain. We have to be careful, the road is not safe, Situ Muyang said to Su-yi. It should be much faster if we fly over. The corner of Su-yi's mouth curled into a smile. He had already cultivated the 100 steps of Fuyao to the 3rd level, and was able to condense a pair of Yuan Qi wings, which gave him a lot of advantages. If you want to fly over, I guarantee that you will regret it. Situ Muyang chuckled, looked at Su-yi and said, It is relatively safe here, we have to restrain our aura as much as possible, otherwise it might cause danger. Is that so? Su-yi frowned, looking at Mu Yao. When Ryugan River, Zhang Lingyun, Jian Yi and the others left. No wonder they did not release much of their aura. It turned out that the more aura they released, the greater the danger they might encounter. The two of them formed a group, slightly releasing their yuan qi, and headed towards the huge mountain peak. In this space, the line of sight was dim, as if there was no sun. Even the air was filled with a black mist-like airflow, as if there was a huge ancient tomb buried underground, and there was a heart-palpitating aura everywhere. The mountain was connected to the stone paths, and not a single blade of grass grew. Everywhere was filled with the vicissitudes of life and deathly stillness. Sui was deeply moved. He did not know how many experts of Xinjiang Gate had walked into this place when their oil lamps were about to run out. In the end, they were buried here. This was the burial place of many experts of Xinjiang Gate. A moment later, Mu Yao, Yun Lingfeng, Ryugan River, and the others disappeared. There was more than one mountain path in the mountain range, and all of them led to the most majestic peak in front of them. Not long after, a white skeleton sat cross-legged on a huge rock. Its body was covered in a mottled robe, and the emblem of Xinjiang Gate could be faintly seen on it. The skeleton had fluffy black hair that covered its face, revealing a faintly discernible skull. In front of it was a sword that was inserted into the rock upside down, and was covered in dust. Situ Muyang stepped forward and bowed respectfully. He seemed to have sensed something as he said softly, "This is a senior expert of the Divine Sword sect. He passed away here when he passed away." Sui also stepped forward and bowed. He was now a disciple of Xinjiang Gate, and this was the body of an ancestor of Xinjiang Gate. He had passed away here, so he was in awe. Looking at the skeleton in front of him, the body of an ancestor expert of Xinjiang Gate was like an ordinary bone. There was no fluctuation of aura, and it was dim. Sui looked carefully. There were even faint black spots on the skeleton, as if it had been corroded by some mysterious aura. This treasure sword is also a treasure. It's at least at the Dao artifact level. Situ Muyang said to Sui. The dusty sword in front of the ancestor expert was at least at the Dao artifact level. It was a treasure. Dao artifact. Hearing that, Suyi's eyes lit up, and immediately stared at the dusty sword. $8G treasure sword at the Dao artifact level, even if it was at the initial stage of the Dao artifact level, was equivalent to being priceless. The weapon level was Yuan weapon, Xian weapon, Spirit weapon, Dao artifact, Magic artifact, and Saint artifact. The weapons at the Spirit weapon level were already sentient and could complement their masters. As for the weapons at the Dao artifact level, it was said that they had already carried the Dao and could fuse with their masters. You can try to communicate with it, and maybe it will choose you. However, you can only take one treasure from the Divine Sword Valley. If you choose another one, you won't be able to get what the ancestor left behind. Situ Muyang told Sui. Is that so? Sui immediately shook his head. Although this Dao artifact level treasure sword was a treasure, the biggest goal of entering the Divine Sword Valley was to enter the Xinjiang Gate. It was no wonder that every time a disciple of the Xinjiang Gate came in, there would definitely be someone who passed by this place, but did not take away this treasure sword. Buzz! Suddenly, at this moment, the dusty sword suddenly emitted a buzzing sound. The dust trembled, and a ray of light spread out. This light carried a strange black mist, and it was filled with a terrifying aura. Swish! A strange black light suddenly shot out from the deep eye sockets of the skeleton that had already passed away in a sitting posture. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Boom! From the fluffy black hair that covered his face, a chilling aura suddenly swept out, causing his tattered robes to flutter in the wind. Swish! Everything was as fast as lightning. The skeleton that had passed away seemed to have suddenly come to life. It waved its hand and pulled out the treasure sword in front of it. A sword light was like lightning, and directly slashed towards Sui and Situ Muyang. This is bad. Su Yi's face changed greatly. He activated the Fuyao 100 changing steps to the extreme, pulling Situ Muyang, who was still unable to react, and instantly retreated. Boom! Wherever the sword light passed, a long crack would appear on the ground. Gravel would surge, and sand would fly everywhere. What's going on? Situ Muyang regained his senses. His heart still had a lingering fear. If not for the fact that Su Yi had just left, the consequences of this sword strike could be imagined. Up the mountain, go quickly. Just as Su Yi and Situ Muyang were preparing for battle, and their expressions changed, the skeleton suddenly opened its mouth. Its voice was hoarse, and its voice was hoarse, as if it was hoarse, and the black light in its eyes flickered with a hint of light. The skeleton held the sword tightly in one hand and once again stabbed it into the ground, causing the surrounding ground to crumble inch by inch. It pointed at the majestic mountain peak in front of them and said to Su Yi and Situ Muyang, "Go quickly! Let's go!" Although Su Yi did not know what had happened, this strange change and the terrifying aura that spread out from the skeleton's body made Su Yi very clear that if he stayed here, he would not be a match for the skeleton. If he had not dodged that sword strike quickly, an ordinary Yuan Zhen stage cultivator would not have been able to withstand it. Whoosh whoosh, without any hesitation, the two of them quickly left, their hearts trembling. Only when the skeleton's movements had disappeared far away did Su Yi and Situ Muyang slow down. What the hell just happened? Chapter 572. I don't know, the aura is very strange. Su Yi shook his head. He did not know what had happened, but there was no doubt that he had just escaped a calamity. Boom! Suddenly, the ground trembled for no reason. Be careful. Su Yi and Situ Muyang were still in shock. They immediately stood with their backs against each other, circulating their Yuan Qi in their body, ready for battle. Qi. Cracks appeared on the ground. 2 white bone palms were suffused with a black light, and on the white bones there was a strange black dot. One hand grabbed onto Su Yi's anklet, and the other grabbed onto Situ Muyang's anklet. A strange aura filled the air, and corrosive Yuan Qi protected them. Not good! Su Yi's face changed greatly. His eyes suddenly flashed with a dazzling light like lightning. His clothes fluttered, and his hair fluttered behind him. The aura on his body seemed to carry the fury of thunder. His right foot suddenly stomped, and a Yuan Qi vortex swept out like a storm under his foot. Boom! As his foot landed, the ground trembled and the air roared. This was the first move of Wrath of the Eight Lands. From where Su Yi's foot landed, circles of black earth attribute Yuan Qi energy swept out like wave. Crack crack. Where Su Yi's foot landed, the ground cracked, and cracks as thick as an arm spread out like a spider web. The surrounding rocks and dust were all shattered into fine powder in an instant, and the surrounding area was shaken to the point of rapidly fluctuating. The 2 white bone palms that were suffused with black light that stretched out from the ground were also shaken away, and the black light was dissipating. Boom! But also at this moment, on the surrounding mountains, there were many auras fluctuating, and several skeleton-like figures crawled out of nowhere. These skeletons all had disheveled hair, and the aura on their bodies was terrifying. Their eye sockets emitted a heart-palpitating black light, and they all stared at Su Yi and Situ Muyang. This is bad, let's go. Su Yi's expression changed greatly. Yuan Qi gushed out from the soles of his feet, and he immediately fled. What the hell is going on? I've never heard of such danger. Situ Muyang clicked his tongue. He had never heard of such a strange danger in the Divine Sword Valley. Without any delay, he followed behind Su Yi. Ka. A tall skeleton crawled out from the crack in the ground beneath Su Yi and Situ Muyang's feet. Its eyes flickered with black light as it stared in the direction that Su Yi and Situ Muyang had left. It then immediately chased after them. Whoosh whoosh on the cliffs of the surrounding mountains, The skeletons were also climbing up the cliffs like monkeys, chasing after Su-yi and Situ Muyang. What the hell is going on? Is it a zombie? As Situ Muyang fled, he didn't have the time to turn around and look behind him. Seeing the strange skeleton chasing after him, he couldn't help but click his tongue. It shouldn't be a zombie. Su-yi was also speechless. The people buried here were all the strong ancestors of the Divine Sword sect. What kind of people were they? How could they turn into corpses? There must have been some kind of shocking change inside. What do we do now? Situ Muyang asked Su-yi as he looked behind him. Fortunately, the skeletons behind them were not flying, and their speed was about the same as theirs. However, for some reason, the number of skeletons was increasing. Let's go to the mountain in front, Su-yi said. It seemed that he had no other choice. Even if he wanted to leave, there was no way out. F8 equals in the entire Divine Sword Valley, not a single blade of grass grew on the mountain. It was deathly silent everywhere. Su-yi and Situ Muyang ran away, being chased by strange skeletons. It looked rather strange from afar. After more than an hour, they were getting closer and closer to the huge mountain in front of them. However, for some reason, the strange and terrifying aura that filled the air became denser and denser. Bang! 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 Suddenly, a violent commotion came from the front. Muffled sounds of energy could be heard unceasingly. Several figures appeared in front of Su-yi and Situ Muyang. A man and two women were currently being entangled by three skeletons. The violent energy surged. It seems to be Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and Ouyang Ran. Situ Muyang recognized the three of them from afar. They were Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and Ouyang Ran. Su-yi also recognized the three of them. He didn't expect that the three of them would appear here and be attacked by the strange skeletons. The three puppets seemed to be extremely powerful in the fierce battle in front of them. Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and Ouyang Ran were already using their full strength. Their swords were as fast as lightning, but they were still no match for the three unarmed skeletons. They were defeated one after another. They were in a sorry state and their bodies were already injured. They seemed to be in a lot of trouble. Do you want to help them? Situ Muyang asked Su-yi. After all, Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and the others had never been polite to Su-yi. When the three of them were in the myriad sword battlefield, they had even chased after Su-yi and himself. Moreover, the strange skeletons behind them were also following them like shadows. They couldn't get rid of them at all. Swish, swish, Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and Ouyang Shuang's complexion changed drastically. Their expressions were grave. They were obviously shocked by this unforeseen event. At this moment, the three of them were using their full strength, but it was still difficult for them to be a match for the three skeletons. They were retreating step by step. Their hair was disheveled, and their bodies were covered with injuries. Clang! The golden halberd exploded. The sword light in Gong Chi's hand slashed on the palm of the skeleton in front of him. Sparks flew everywhere, but the skeleton's palm was not damaged at all. Not even a mark was left on it. Instead, a sword tightly grabbed onto Gong Chi's sword. A strange aura spread out along the sword's body, and it could corrode vitality. Gong Chi's complexion changed drastically. Under that strange power, the vitality in her body was affected. The sword in her hand was tightly grasped, and she couldn't pull it out at all. Under the influence of that aura, even Gong Chi's soul was affected, and he began to feel dizzy. Chi, a skeleton claw immediately stretched out and instantly appeared in front of Gong Chi. It was filled with a terrifying black light, and the strange aura made her soul tremble. Oh no! Gong Chi's beautiful face turned pale. He felt the aura of death. Be careful! Sakura Asaka exclaimed. However, her situation was not much better than Gong Chi's at this moment. She couldn't help him at all. Chi-la! In a split second, a blue-robed figure strangely appeared in front of Gong Chi. A frightening yuan power spread out like an erupting volcano. A fist that was accompanied by wind and thunder was emitted with a sonorous sound. It was like a low thunder roar as it directly collided with the skeletal claw. Boom! Such a collision caused sand and stones to fly around, and the ground to tremble. Deng deng! The blue-robed figure and Gong Qi's figure were instantly shaken back. They staggered a few steps before stabilizing their bodies. Gong Qi finally got away. The strange aura just now disappeared, and a strong wind blew her back. Humph! Su-yi stamped his foot on the ground to stabilize his retreat. The blood in his body was surging, and a muffled groan came from his throat. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "It's you!" Seeing that the figure that suddenly appeared in front of her to save her was actually Su-yi, Gong Qi's pale face was very surprised. She was still in shock. She had just escaped a disaster. The skeleton stood in the same place, its aura fluctuating. For some reason, the black light in its eyes began to diffuse. It seemed to be struggling. It looked at Su-yi and Gong Qi, waved its hand and pointed to the magnificent mountain. Its voice was hoarse and hoarse. "Go to the mountain, go to the mountain." The two puppets that were dealing with Sakura Asaka and Ouyang Ran were also affected by something at this moment. The black light in their eyes fluctuated, but the effect was not as great as that of the puppet that had just fought with Su-yi. However, it stopped attacking Sakura Asaka and Ouyang Ran. "Go, go!" Situ Muyang said loudly without stopping. "Go!" Su-yi's expression sank. These skeletons were too difficult to deal with. They had no choice but to go to the mountain now. Gong Qi, Sakura Asaka, and Ouyang Ran didn't dare to hesitate at this moment. They immediately followed behind Su-yi with all their strength. The skeletons that had been chasing after Su-yi and Situmuyang were still in hot pursuit. The three skeletons that had just fought with Gong Qi and the other two were sluggish for a while. Their eyes were covered by the strange black light again, and they joined in the chase. "What the hell is going on? Do you know what's going on with these skeletons?" Sakura Asaka and the other two were following behind Su-yi and Situmuyang. They were still in a state of shock as they asked Su-yi and Situmuyang. "We don't know either. Did you guys encounter young Master Du?" Situmuyang shook his head and asked. "There are several of them, and they are all very terrifying." Ouyang Ran still had a lingering fear in his heart. The five of them were running at full speed. They were getting closer and closer to the huge mountain peak. However, the group of skeletons behind them was also getting closer and closer. Woo! Suddenly, in the void, there was a soul-stirring sound of breaking wind. In the void in front of the five of them, a dazzling light flashed out like lightning. It carried a terrifying aura and swept across the sky. "Be careful!" Su-yi let out a light shout. The aura on his body enveloped his entire body. He immediately shot out a palm print from his hand. Swish! When this light fell, it was a sword ray. It directly shattered Su-yi's palm print. The sword ray spread out. The terrifying aura caused Su-yi's complexion to change greatly. He activated the rising Yao 100 transformation steps to the extreme. The soles of his feet touched the ground, and his figure rapidly dodged in an unimaginable arc swish. A cold light pierced his skin. Su-yi immediately had goosebumps all over his body. The aura barrier on his body shattered, and a few strands of his hair were cut off. A shallow wound appeared on his neck. Under the terrifying aura, Su-yi stumbled back with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. If he did not have the rising Yao 100 transformation steps, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Woo! The sound of breaking wind resounded. A treasured sword appeared in the void. Its light was terrifying, and it was surrounded by a black light. "This is a treasure. It's of a very high level." Sakura Asaka, Ouyang Ran, Gong Qi, and Situ Muyang's complexion changed. This single sword was actually attacking them. Woo-woo! The sword made a woo-woo sound and the black light rippled. Then, it exploded into a large sword ray. It swooped down from the sky. The sword ray rushed out and enveloped Sakura Asaka, Situ Muyang, Ouyang Ran, and Gong Chi. Not good. It was just a strange sword, but the four of them knew how terrifying it was. Even someone as powerful as Su Yi was injured by it. Let's attack together. The four of them formed a tacit understanding and attacked together. Even Situ Muyang pulled out his treasured sword. 4 sword rays swept out with all his might. Woo 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 woo. Chapter 573. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of metal clanging resounded as blinding sword flashes sent 4 figures flying. The extraordinary swords in their hands were completely shattered, leaving only their sword hilts. The 4 of them landed on the ground and spat out blood. Pua Situ Muyang, Sakura Asaka, Ouyang Ran, and Gong Chi were in wretched states. They were horrified as blood trickled down the corners of their mouth. Woo woo, the void sword hummed as it emitted a black beam of light. The sword chi was terrifying as it transformed into a black bolt of lightning that slashed at the nearest Ouyang Ran. It was too fast as Ouyang Ran's pupils constricted. The sword beam expanded in his pupils like lightning. Ouyang Ran had no time to dodge as a chill crept up from the bottom of his heart. Clang! He was shocked. At that moment, a crimson sword beam blocked the black sword beam. A blue-robed youth appeared in front of Ouyang Ran and blocked the black sword light with a broken sword. The blue-robed youth was none other than Su Yi. The sword was the broken sword that Su Yi always carried on his back. The black sword beam boomed as a terrifying aura surged. An extremely strange power that seemed to corrode everything surged into Su Yi's body through the broken sword. The strange power wanted to destroy Su Yi and shatter Su Yi's broken sword. Boom! Against the strange corrosive power, Su Yi circulated the primordial chaos supreme technique and the Heaven Fei ancient sutra almost simultaneously to resist the strange power. Especially the domineering and destructive aura of Su Yi's primordial chaos supreme technique, it easily destroyed the strange power. Boom! And at the same time, the broken sword seemed to stir under the impact of the strange power. Instantly, it shimmered resplendently as a monstrous sword beam surged out. Hula! A monstrous killing intent also surged into Su Yi's body along with the sword beam. The killing intent caused Su Yi's vision to blur. He once again saw the scene of blood flowing like a river and corpses piling up. This kind of killing intent was too terrifying, as if it wanted to destroy everything. Su Yi's body and cultivation were much stronger than before, but at this time, his body was still trembling under the impact of the killing intent, as if it was about to be crushed by the killing intent. However, at that moment, the power of the killing intent directly resisted the strange power from the black sword light. At this moment, the broken sword was like a king that had been provoked, like a sleeping dragon that had been disturbed. Buzz buzz. WF update I plus new Z on non the broken sword, resplendent rays of light shone. Wind and thunder clanged, and that terrifying aura was like that of a monstrous beast awakening. Chi La sword chi filled the sky and sword light was dazzling. It directly rushed out and forced the black light sword back. Break! Su Yi let out a short shout, and a bloody killing intent quietly climbed up his eyes. The bloody light was awe-inspiring, and without hesitation, he tightly gripped the broken sword and slashed out. Whoosh! Wherever the sword light passed, the void was turbulent, and it swept out with the killing intent that filled the sky. That strange sword body seemed to have felt something, and the whooshing sound of the wind was constantly heard. Suddenly, dense black sword light burst out. Every single one of the densely packed sword lights seemed to be able to cut through the void as they shot out in unison. A strange aura filled the air, covering the sky and covering the earth. The scene was horrifying, and the light in the surroundings dimmed. Clang! The sword light collided. Su Yi's sword seemed thin, but the monstrous killing intent burst out and turned into endless sword chi that swept in all directions. It was like a flood pouring down, covering this part of the void. There was a violent collision, and the golden spears collided. Gong Chi, Sakura Asaka, Situ Muyang, and Ouyang Ran were shocked, and their eyes were full of shock. They felt that if Su Yi used this sword a few days ago on Spirit Sword Peak, even someone as strong as Mu Yao would not be a match for it. In just a moment, the black sword light collapsed and was destroyed by the sword chi. Swish! A sword light that contained monstrous killing intent directly cut the sword body wrapped in black light. Crack! The sword was cut into two, and the strange sword body was broken. Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and the others stared at Su Yi in horror. They were so shocked that they could not be more shocked. It turned out that this inconspicuous broken sword was actually so powerful. At this moment, the dazzling light and aura that spread out from the broken sword made it not difficult for Ouyang Ran and the others to know that it was definitely a precious treasure. Thud, thud, Su Yi staggered and retreated. Under the impact of the terrible killing intent in the broken sword, some parts of Su Yi's body even cracked, and his flesh was badly mutilated. Blood flowed out, and he looked like a bloody man. Whoosh, whoosh! The skeletons that had been chasing behind them were getting closer and closer. Go, go quickly! The killing intent did not completely affect Su Yi, and he maintained his last bit of consciousness. This was not a place to stay for long. Whoosh, whoosh! No one dared to stay any longer. It was too dangerous, and they quickly left. Su Yi got rid of the broken sword's influence. He did not have time to think about why the broken sword reacted just now. He carried the broken sword on his back again and headed toward the majestic mountain peak. The majestic mountain peak towered into the clouds. It was incomparably huge. The mountain was surrounded by steep cliffs, and black clouds drifted in the surroundings. It was filled with a strange aura. When Su Yi, Situ Muyang, and the others appeared at the foot of the mountain in a panic, many figures had already appeared. These figures were Zhang Lingyun, Jian Shi, Luo, Gu Chenyu, and more than 10 people. At this moment, these people looked more miserable than Su Yi and Situ Muyang. They looked at each other and secretly changed their expressions. Zhang Lingyun, Jian Shi, Gu Chenyu, and the others seemed to have just arrived. Boom! Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The aura was vast and mighty, and electric arcs flickered. Ryugan River appeared. His whole body was covered with electric arcs, and he was covered with a thunder armor. His expression was solemn, and he looked just as miserable. Immediately after, 2 more auras appeared. A graceful golden figure was fierce and domineering. Her eyes were also filled with a golden color. It was Mu Yao. A white-clothed figure was shrouded in radiance. His aura was surging and vigorous. His hair was disheveled, and his white clothes were stained with blood. It was Yunlingfeng. The 18 people met at the foot of the mountain and arrived one after another. Su Yi's gaze swept across them. It was not difficult to tell from their current appearance that everyone had encountered the same situation. It was already lucky that no one had died on the way. You guys also encountered those skeletons. Gu Chenyu looked at the people who had just arrived. They were still in shock, and their hair was disheveled. Their auras were weak, and they asked everyone. Everyone looked at each other and nodded. They were already sure that everyone had encountered the same situation. Whoosh, whoosh, the sound of wind breaking resounded in all directions. Strange skeletons leaped out from all directions and appeared at the foot of the mountain. At this moment, the skeletons from all directions added up to over 100, surrounding the 18 people in the middle. Not good, these skeletons are too strange. They are difficult to deal with. Chapter 574. Yunlingfeng arrived at Mu Yao's side. His eyes were filled with concern as he said, "If we join hands, our chances of victory will be higher. Join hands, otherwise no one will be able to handle it." Mu Yao glanced at him indifferently and ignored him. Instead, she immediately spoke to everyone. Her body was enveloped by golden radiance, and a tyrannical demonic aura pervaded the air. With Mu Yao's status and strength, everyone immediately closed in on her as soon as she finished speaking. Yunling Feng seemed to be a little embarrassed, but he didn't mind it at all. With a smile on his face, he said to Mu Yao, "Let's join hands, nothing could be better than this." Boom! Those skeletons appeared without any delay. The ones that arrived first already pounced on the nearest person. Rumble! Some people clashed with each other in panic. The gale collided with each other, and the sword rays swept across. Stomp stomp, pfff. But very quickly, some people vomited blood and retreated. They were no match for the skeletons. Boom! Very quickly, all the skeletons had already surrounded them. A strange black light burst out from their hollow eye socket. Specks of black spots appeared on the originally ghastly white skeletons. "We are in big trouble." Situ Muyang deployed the Imperial Wind battlesuit and attacked with all his might. Bang! Su Yi threw a punch at the skeletons, but he was forced to retreat. His aura was rolling over and over. Rumble! Ryugan River was also attacking with all his might. Amidst the resplendent lightning, the armor on his body was simple and unadorned. It was emitting a greenish-white color. The lightning aura and simple aura were released. The electric arcs flickered and sizzled. A terrifying aura pervaded the air. Mu Yao's beautiful figure was suffused with golden radiance. Her jade-like palm seemed to be covered by the golden radiance. It carried an incomparably sharp aura. The golden radiance formed an energy storm along with the gale as she battled against three skeletons. Roar! The shadow of the blood-eyed demonic windwolf appeared under Yunling Feng's feet. It was glowing brightly, its claws were like hooks, and its fangs were gleaming. It was incomparably ruthless, and its entire body was incomparably swift and fierce. Yunling Feng's robe and hair fluttered in the wind. He stepped on the shadow of the blood-eyed demonic windwolf and engaged in a fierce battle with the skeletons. Su had just stabilized himself after being knocked back, when a skeleton strangely pounced at him from the side. Su Yi's eyes darkened. At the same time, a vortex-like light gushed out from his clear and deep eyes. A terrifying aura filled the air with an ancient charm that seemed capable of suppressing the surroundings. The heavenly demon ancient scripture was operating at its peak. Bang bang bang, at this moment everyone was giving it their all. Sword light poured down in torrents, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. No one held back. PFFF, however, even though everyone was fighting with all their might, they were still no match for so many strange skeletons. Just by exchanging blows, some of them were sent flying while coughing up blood. Woo-woo! Suddenly, there were skeletons climbing down from the majestic mountain peak like ape. Above the void, whooshing sounds of wind breaking resounded. At least a dozen strange swords wrapped in black light broke through the void and appeared. They were wrapped in a frightening aura and were suspended in midair. "I'm afraid we're all doomed this time." Ouyang Ran was sent retreating. When he saw more and more skeletons and the strange swords around him, his expression turned extremely grave. The skeletons were already impossible to deal with, but now there were more and more of them. The strange swords were even more terrifying. Swish, swish, in the void, the strange black swords whooshed through the air. Large swaths of sword light carried a sharp and frightening killing intent as they slashed down at the crowd. The terrifying aura enveloped the area, causing the void to tremble. Everyone present was apprehensive, knowing that they could not withstand it. Boom! Suddenly, the void trembled in the blink of an eye. A resplendent golden light surged out. A large swath of golden sword light tore through the air and blocked the strange black light. Clang clang, golden weapons clashed, sending sparks flying and strong winds surging. Amidst the resplendent light, a thin figure appeared in the void. He held a sword that was suffused with golden light. Everyone looked over in surprise. Without a doubt, it was this person who had saved them. However, when everyone looked at the figure that appeared, their gazes turned serious once again. Strictly speaking, this was not a person, but a mummy. A mummy that had yet to become a skeleton. The muscles and skin on its body had already dried up and covered its bones with wrinkles. Its face was so shriveled that it looked like a piece of shriveled human skin was stuck on it. Its eyes were filled with golden light. But at this moment, when this mummy-like figure appeared, the aura on its body was incomparably powerful. Golden rainbow sword, could it be the elder Jin Ming who had reached the end of his life 100 years ago? Gu Qinyu was surprised. It was the golden rainbow sword. He had seen an introduction at the Shenzhen Gate. It was the elder Jin Ming's item. And his master's grandmaster was the elder Jin Ming, so he had paid special attention to it. Hundreds of years ago, the elder Jin Ming had relied on the golden rainbow sword to defeat many experts. And now, with the appearance of the golden rainbow sword and the strange changes in the divine sword valley, Gu Qinyu had to suspect that this mummy-like figure was the elder Jin Ming who had reached the end of his life 100 years ago. Wu, following the appearance of the mummy, the skeletons and strange sword bodies seemed to have sensed something, and all of them stared at the mummy with their invisible auras. This time, so many people have come. They're finally here. Go up, go up. A hoarse voice came out from the mummy's mouth, as if it was with great difficulty. Most 6 New G Chapter J5 Section SXS 1/7/Wu under the whooshing sound of breaking wind, the strange sword bodies exploded and enveloped the mummy's figure. Whoosh whoosh, the skeleton's eye sockets fluctuated with black light as they continued to pounce towards Su-Yi and the others. Go up the mountain, go! The mummy's figure shouted hoarsely. His voice was hoarse. His shriveled body erupted with boundless golden light. The golden rainbow sword in his hand resounded with the sound of wind and thunder. A large amount of light burst out, as if forming a sharp storm that swept through the air and the ground, blocking the large amount of strange sword attacks and skeletons. Whoosh! Yun Lingfeng stepped on the blood-eye demonic windwolf's shadow formed from his vitality, and immediately headed up the mountain. The supreme benefits were left behind by the Xinjian Gate's ancestor on the mountain. He could not miss it. Let's go up the mountain. Seeing that, Gu Qinyu, Zhang Lingyun, Jian Shi and the others all had their vitality transformed into beast shadows that soared into the air and headed up the mountain. Mu Yao, Ryugan River, Sakura Asaka, Gong Qi and the others did not delay. The supreme benefits were also their purpose in entering the Divine Sword Valley this time. Boss Su-Yi, let's go. Situ Muyang clenched his teeth. Although he knew that it was dangerous, he had already brought it to the foot of the mountain, so he naturally could not miss it. Furthermore, in this situation, there seemed to be no way out. Let's go. Su-Yi nodded, the vitality on his back condensed into a pair of wings, and was about to fly up the mountain. Bang 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 bang. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.